what do you got?
I think I can prove to a judge that both of these men had the mens rea.
What the hell is a mens rea?
It's a legal term the lawyers use. It just means the intention to commit a crime.
Okay, come on, let's go.
Mens rea?
Put the cuffs on him.
How could we have gotten mens rea? We take blood? Can you do it without taking blood? We both use condoms. How is this possible? I want to see a doctor. Can I have an independent blood test?
Money!
I feel sick.
What are you doing?
Mens rea! Oh! Oh! My God!
Before they
Don't get brazen with me.
Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whoever you're doing it with, and however it feels, welcome. Welcome to Legal Vices. It's me, Jeff, a.k.a. Legal Vices, and we're here to pick up where we left off yesterday. Yesterday, we spoke to Zachariah Anderson's brother, Solomon, and today we're talking to his sister, Zenith. As I said yesterday, could have done these two together, but I wanted to talk more personally with them about how this impacts them and what their backgrounds and how this is affecting them and their family in the future. And I thought it would impact a brother in a much different way than it would impact a sister. And so I wanted to do them separately and give them each individually the attention I think that they deserve. So before we bring them up, just a quick thing, Chandler. Damn it, one of these times I'm not going to call you Chandler Anderson. I apologize for that. Chandler Remington is also backstage. Ozzy Overlord Hayden, he said he has to wake up early and do a bunch of driving, so he's asleep already, so he won't be able to make. And then Nicholas Starov, he was called into work to do some late work, so he will not be joining us today either. So it'll be me, Chandler Remington, and Zenith Anderson talking about that. And really quickly here, because we got a lot of ground to cover and not much time to do it in, we've got the poll up today, the like and subscribe poll. Make sure you take that. Hit that like button. We've got 450 of you here right now, and only 297 of you hit the like, so 150 of you haven't done your job yet. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button if you were so inclined. If you have not subscribed, I would deeply, deeply appreciate it if you would do so. And make sure you hit the like button. Let YouTube know you like what's going on here. And it'll get sent out their algorithm will be triggered, and then they'll send people our way so that we can enjoy this stream and enjoy future streams. And take the poll when you're done. It's just our little way of reminding you to do the like and subscribe thing that YouTube wants. Basic poll again today. It's usually we have some sort of witty, irreverent thing going, but wanted to keep sort of semi-serious with the topic today. So simple poll, you hit the like and subscribe buttons, right? Yep, I always do. And of course I did now. No doggo cam today. Dog cam will return tomorrow. And that should just about do it. Again, like, subscribe, and all that other stuff. Let's bring in our guests today. Chandler Remington, who sat through the entire trial with Ozzy and I. We only sat through half of it live. She sat through the whole dang thing live. And the person who has sat through this for most of her life, Zenith Anderson. Welcome.
Hi.
How are you doing relatively?
I mean, relatively, I'm doing all right. Yeah, it's been stressful.
I'm sure it has.
We're glad that you're here, and we're glad that you agreed to do this so that we could get some more insight into the background. We see the trials on TV, we get the verdicts, we move on to the next trial, the next topic, we put it behind us, we find something else. But this is something you have to live with every day. And the way this trial weirdly affected me, I mean, I can only imagine how it would affect someone directly involved in this. So that's kind of what I wanted to explore through these interviews with you and Solomon. And so, I know you were in chat yesterday and you saw how that went. So it's kind of along those same lines. And Chandler, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I just wanted to tell everybody that I'm not Chandler Halderson. I did not chop up my parents. So, but I'm doing great. Got a lot of sleep last night and I made it on time. So I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, great.
And I'm happy to be here with Zenith. I'm so excited that she's joining us. This is going to be great. I'm really looking forward to getting to know her. And, I just have to say, like, thank you so much for joining us because I know that you and your family have all gone through so much, and this is a very sensitive circumstance. But we are so glad to get some insight and some perspective into what's going on behind the scenes because we all really felt for your family. We all watched the trial, and I know that we all really empathized with what was going on. And I just think that it's incredibly courageous of you to take the time to come on with us.
Yeah, well, not that I'm not happy to be here. I definitely wish it was under different circumstances.
Under better circumstances.
Yeah,
Me
I
too.
know.
We all do. We
Yeah,
really do.
I know in the beginning, when I first started talking to Jeff and we were like, come on. And then it was like, maybe not during the trial. And then it was like, well, after, depending on which way the verdict goes. And definitely wish it had been the other way. But nonetheless, here we are. So.
Yeah, and it totally changes the mood, changes the subject. It's not the victory tour. It's, it's the other way around. But going into this, as I've mentioned before, this was really, really strange for me because I've had other things I've talked about, like shipping disasters and whatnot, where someone will say, oh, my uncle was on that ship, or, oh, my ex-husband owned that ship, things like that. But this was the first time someone said, no, that's my brother.
That's my brother.
And we had a lot of back and forth behind the scenes because I have to do my due diligence to find out if this is actually this guy's sister or just someone being, a douchey troll. And once I was convinced, it sort of took on a deeper. I don't want to say it took on a deeper meaning for me, but it changed the dynamic to where I realized that it affects people's lives. And at a distance, I'm just, and I told you this, I said, you might not like what I say because I'm going to call it as I see it.
Yeah. And I told you,
I'm sure you remember that.
Yeah. And I told you, I said, there's no way you could say anything or any of your subscribers could say anything worse than what we've said to each other as siblings. Right. So,
yeah, because, we're kind of snarky. We're irreverent.
So are we.
Dark humor resides in me and my chat.
And as and it does with all the siblings too. We have I don't know if it's because of our childhood trauma or what it is, but we all pretty much have a pretty dark sense of humor as well. So
I think trauma makes you funny. That's my personal philosophy.
And we're hilarious, okay?
Who, me?
And
no, you and us, the brothers, they're some of the funniest people I know. So.
Well, it's a weird. Lawyers, doctors, and policemen, I think, have just the sickest sense of humor from anybody because we're like three people that nobody ever calls for a good reason.
Yeah.
And you just don't go to the emergency room because everything's great. You don't call 911 because you're having a great day. You don't go visit a lawyer if you have no problems. Usually, I'd love it if people came to me before they had problems to avoid the problems, but it usually doesn't go that way. But so we tend to be dark, and as Chandler is saying, the humor kind of alleviates some of the stress, but the impact that this trial had on me, is we're coming off the tails of the Alex Murdaugh trial, where there was very little evidence of his guilt. It was a financial crime. It turned into a financial crimes trial that resulted in a guilty verdict for double murder. And I thought that was going to be the trial with the least amount of evidence I would ever see in my life. Little did I know that 3 days later, I'd be involved in a case where there is virtually no evidence at all, and certainly nothing I would consider to be direct evidence.
And a lot of exculpatory evidence that shows that there is a very reasonable number of theories. We had people in chat, being like, what if he's on a beach somewhere in Tijuana? Like, what if that, somebody killed a raccoon in the apartment? Like, there were a lot of theories that made so much more sense than what the prosecution was trying to sell. And we all thought that people were seeing it that way. And unfortunately, there was a big disparity with how the jury was perceiving it, and then the chat in Law and Crime. And I can't imagine how hard it must be to know your brother and, to know what kind of a person he is and to know what happened and to have to sit back and watch people say awful things. It must be extremely painful.
Yeah. Yes. And so much so that after the first few months, like after his arrest, I stopped looking at the media coverage of everything.
Yeah. Which was very biased. I mean, they called it the
Yeah.
obsessed ex-boyfriend trial. The labeling of it, I thought was absurd.
And all of the things that they would put in the media saying that they found this or they found that, and, you know, being a part of the investigation. And I knew it wasn't true, but like, what can you do? Like, we couldn't really say anything. So that was really frustrating. But so here we are years later, and the trial's finally happening. And I had no idea, honestly, because I had stopped looking at the news articles in the media and everything. But the trial was coming up, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to make it back to Wisconsin to be there. So I went on to YouTube trying to figure out where I could watch it live. And that's how I stumbled upon Jeff's stream, because when I searched, you know, Zachariah Anderson versus Wisconsin, or whatever, but versus Wisconsin, I saw his, like, the screen snap of, like, where you see the video of whatever, where you've got your little icons and whatnot, and it said crazy obsessed ex-boyfriend or something, and I was like pissed. And so I went into that stream to comment on it, like, for the record, you know what I mean? He is not. And I just like went off in this comment, and he was, and then that's what he's talking about, the whole behind the scenes, where he was like, maybe you are, maybe you're not, there's no way to prove it. And I was just like, oh, I'll prove it. You know? And and then
I got to do the due diligence.
Yeah. And then I had no idea. I figured Saul and Jen and everyone would be there at, you know, the trial. So I wasn't expecting to run into them in the chat the very first day of trial. So that was,
well, see, that was the weird thing. I thought you all just came together, but then hearing Solomon last night going, no, you just ran into each other in chat. I'm like, okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm flattered that you could have gone to Court TV, could have gone to Law and Crime and put up that crap, where the focus of their entire chat was A, he's guilty, and B, what's Nicole Muller wearing as for a top today? That was the big Law and Crime thing. You know, I hate them with a passion.
You know, y'all went. I stayed in you and Aussie's streams for the majority of it. There was like one day Aussie and Chandler had quite a bit to drink, and they got very chatty, and I had to go and watch Law and Crime once. And then during the verdict watch, I couldn't take my eyes off of the Law and Crime screen. And that's when I finally saw the chat there for the first time. And it was awful. Like, they are like, for people who, you know, like y'all say, you know, you watch a case and then y'all move on with your lives. The things that those people were saying, you know, I don't even know. I don't know why, because, you know, after this was all said and done, they moved on with their lives and they're on to the next one. It's very hurtful, though, but kind of scary almost to see the hate people have for Zach and just our family, with not even knowing half of the truth, you know? So.
Yeah, I think just a lot of it comes with the anonymity of the internet, and what I not even semi derogatory, just derogatorily call the true crime keyboard warrior box wine moms. But I mean, the box wine mom can be amazing. It's just the Karen thing. You know, it can be a guy, it doesn't matter. It's just those people that they thrive on the sordid details of true crime, and, you know, they can't get enough, and they just binge watch this all day, every day. They do their own research. They post about it online. Ooh, I heard this saucy little detail, which is a complete ridiculous rumor, and they just don't even care.
Right.
And they think they can just say anything because they have absolutely no interaction with the real people involved.
Right. Yeah.
And if they met you, would they say that to your face, is what I wonder.
No.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing is
but
everybody's brave behind a screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but as I was mentioning before, normally the Law and Crime poll on guilt or innocence is usually about 80 to 90% guilty and 10% not guilty. And we were exactly the opposite. The people in my chat were literally exactly the opposite. It was like 85, 90% not guilty. But as I said, the prosecution did such a bad job with this case, they were only 65, 70% guilty, which is darn near a landslide not guilty for Law and Crime. But let's go back to the beginning. You grew up in Texas.
I did. So I'm actually a half sister. We share the same mom, but different dads. And it's actually kind of funny because we have the same last name. I was probably 13-ish when I found out that we weren't full-blooded siblings. Um,
Oh wow.
yeah, I was probably 9-ish when I told my dad that I wanted to like get to know that side of the family. I knew I had these brothers in Wisconsin. I knew, well, I didn't know. I don't think I knew at the time that my grandfather had passed away, but but I wanted to talk to them, and my dad was like, "Yeah, sure." So my grandmother, so Granny M and I, we started writing letters, and I talked to her on the phone, and she gave me my brother's information, and that's when I reached out to the Saul, Josh, and Zach, and I've always described Zach as like the glue that held us all together, because when I reached out to them when I was really young, I talked to Josh a couple times, I talked to Saul a couple times, but Zach was the one who really made an effort to stay in contact through the years. We would talk on the phone. I think then we just had a lot in common as far as like music. I'm a musician. I'm a vocalist, singer, songwriter. And so he would call and he'd say, play me a song on the piano or play me a song on the guitar or what have you been writing? And of course, then and even now, anybody wants to listen to me, I'll sing and play for you, So we would just talk for hours about things and playing music. And eventually I wanted to take a trip up there one summer. But to get back, sorry, so I'm gonna lose my train of thought here.
No,
So
go ahead.
how I found out that they weren't my full-blooded siblings. So I was 13-ish, right? I'm sitting there and I'm just looking at my dad and I'm just like getting really mad. And he looks over at me and he's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was just like, "Why don't you talk to your sons?" He was like, what? Like, I don't have any. And I started bawling my eyes out and I was just like, "You don't even claim them." And he was like, "Zenith, like, what are you talking about?" And I was just like, "Josh Anderson, Zach Anderson, Saul Anderson." And he was like, "Oh God, child,
You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it just so happens that our mother happened to marry two men with the same last name. So
Well, that answered that question that I wasn't going to
Mom.
ask.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. That's kind of rare.
Yeah.
Well,
So
you mentioned the music, which is kind of brought up. So it's already been mentioned here in the chat. First of all, the lovely and wonderful Flux Supermod has her own great little channel, House of Flux, one word, 2 X's. Starts us off with her usual super chat mantra. I'm just going to say it. The Andersons are on the attractive side. They have some good genes. Pants are prison, mocha dick, poon, XOXO, fully adjustable. Every trial, she just adds something to the end of this, and the XOXO part was the remnant from this trial.
I'm just
Flux
becoming
is
familiar with
good
all the
people.
inside jokes.
Yeah.
They're quite something,
And Mrs. K. Griff says, I also need Zenith's hair routine.
right?
Wake up.
Your hair looks really good.
Sorry, Mrs. K. Griff, you got it or you don't, I guess.
I always wanted curly hair.
Dr. Kmart says, holy moly, what a nice room.
Isn't it though? Yeah.
Which led to Agony Goose saying, is that a real background? Lol, the drum kit. Also, hate to tell you that's actually this is the actual room, guys. She just said she's a singer, songwriter, musician. Those are all real.
Yeah, this isn't my studio, but it is the studio that I record in and have spent a lot of time in. It's a very good friend of mine studio. Actually, we started when the studio was just in in his master bedroom of a house he used to rent a long time ago, and he's grown it to this, and I couldn't be more proud of him. Michael Wagner, he's excellent singer, songwriter, producer as well. So yeah.
And also, Zenith sounds suitably sultry in line with her brothers. Oh, I tell you, right there at the end when the discussion was about whether or not Zach was going to take the stand, and he spoke for the first time in court. I think all the ladies in chat got a little bit weak in the knees.
Yeah.
They weren't expecting that deep, rich baritone voice to come out.
And Solomon too. Everybody has such a great voice in the family that I've heard so far.
Yeah.
And
Josh too. So.
And you're a
and Adrienne
vocalist.
is
so
asking,
that
how
makes
old
perfect
is
sense.
Zach?
42, 3-ish, somewhere in there.
Hey, Adrienne is at it again. Eh? Enough said. Oh, and gay guys too. All right, Andrew. Good. Now we got everybody accounted for. Everybody likes his voice. All right, we got that lined up. So you met everybody for the first time when you were about 15?
No. So I definitely
Or-
met them when I was like young, like baby. Like I have memories of them. Saul actually lived with us in Texas for a while. But I didn't go visit them until I was like, it was like the summer of whatever summer it would have been, where I was like 14. Because I had my permits. Zach taught me how to drive. I mean, I don't think he taught me how to drive, but when you have your permits and you have to get so many hours behind the wheel before they'll give you your license, he made sure I got all my hours. I got to drive everywhere that summer. And he actually was dating Sadie at the time. So whatever that trip was, it was the first time I had met Sadie. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, again, there's things we can talk about, and there's things we can't talk about. Mm-hmm. So I talked to Nicole Muller before, because I said, before I have anybody on my stream, I'm going to talk to the lawyers and see what they say. She said that she'd pretty much talked to everybody, and you can only talk about the things that were brought up in trial. Things that weren't brought up are sort of off limits. We don't want to do anything or say anything that's going to interfere in any way with the appeals that are inevitably going to be coming. So those are for the chat. So, don't ask, well, what about this that we heard about? What about this rumor? What didn't get said? Or what was so-and-so saying to so-and-so behind the scenes? Those are really the things we can't get into. Keep the questions broad and open. And that'll help us move along a bit. So I hate to say can't talk about that. So,
I saw a question.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Lolo Holmes asked what my first impression of Sadie was. I absolutely loved her. She, we also had a lot in common. She loves music. She loves horses, all the things, I was 14 and like she took me shopping, and so I got to buy clothes that my dad probably wouldn't necessarily have approved of, and so she was just like that cool older sister that I don't know, we had a great time, and through the years we kept a good relationship. I never would have thought something like this could have happened.
How close were you with Zach? I mean, over a living several states away, and
so Zach, I was actually the closest to, because he was, like I said, the glue. He, so I came up that trip when I was 14, came back again at like 16, and just, he always tried to maintain like, we also have more half siblings all over the place. And one year he got all of us to Wisconsin for like a sibling reunion, and that was very special for all of us to just be in the same room together and catch up on all of the life we had missed out from being from such like a crazy broken family tree. And it was really, I have two sisters from my dad's first marriage, and I love them to death. I really do. But it was interesting to meet this side of the family and actually feel like, wow, this is what blood is, you know, to have not spent your entire life together and yet still be so similar.
That's really special.
As far as people on on a really soulful, like intellectual, like, I don't know how to explain it, but like, they're my people, you know, that's my blood. And
you can't put your finger on it, but there's a connection there. There's something that you all have in common.
Very, very much so.
And one thing we can put our finger on is we have another guest we just invited to fill the void left by Nicholas and Ozzy Overlord Hayden, a very good person that I like to consider a very dear friend of mine, a very important person, and an incredible Florida-based appellate lawyer, Stephen N. Gosney.
It's Steve Gosney. Hi, Steve.
Hey, Chandler. How are you? Legal Vices, Mr. Jeff. How are you?
What a lovely surprise. Thank you for joining us.
Yes. Well, actually, the Zenith Anderson. Hello. How are you?
Hi.
I deal with family members of the convicted all of the time.
Yeah, you would.
Yes, and I'm not a lawyer in your jurisdiction, so I appreciate that, and I know that you guys have been reaching out to the all these people that supported your brother and your family, all of the people there. I mean, and I think that it's sad because we have people are kind of catching up with the place that I've been for 10 years or so, which is that is how broken the criminal justice system is. And I think that, you know, I have some sort of general guidance that I could probably provide. And the first is that there's nobody that can replace family. And this is the thing that people don't realize a lot. Like you said, the mob public sees these things as some passing drama, television entertainment, but it's a reality. And the people that go to prison and they're forgotten. And the only thing and the family members are the only connection that they have to the world and to love and normalcy. So that's something that family can provide. I will also say that, you know, this kind of confirms one of those things that we talk about in our offices, in our trial division, that even a good case, even a good defense case is 50-50. And that's, I know that Bronca likes to say 10%, but in our world, it's 50-50. You know, a lot of times when there's cases that are really weak, it plays in that natural human desire to fill the void of evidence with speculation and drama. So people pour into this thing of, oh, I know what really happened here. And they like to play this solving whodunit game. And so that's when these weak cases are the scariest for us, us public defenders or defense attorneys on the criminal defense side, because that humans have that naturally desire to fill in gaps when they shouldn't do that. You know, they're not supposed to do that, but they're invited to do that oftentimes by prosecutors. So I've got lots of thoughts. I can go on and on, you know me. You know, because like another thing that people need to understand.
Okay, I got the mute button right here, Steve.
Yeah. Well, another thing that people need to understand about appeals is that appeals are very, the chances on appeal are very low. And I know that everybody says, well, I'm going to appeal this. You're much better. Your chances are much better at trial. And I hate to say that because it's the flat out statistical fact. And another point on top of that is that oftentimes people say, well, these witnesses were not believable. They were incredible. They shouldn't be believed because there was 10 nuns at a bus that said it didn't happen. And this one convicted felon said it did. The problem is in appeals, credibility is not at issue. You really cannot argue credibility questions to an appellate court. It's strictly an issue of law, whether the correct law was applied. And you have to take the evidence. For instance, in this case, and I didn't watch the case, so I can't comment, and it was a weak case that should have been JOA'd, right? I mean, motion for judgment should have been dismissed because of lack of evidence. Well, that could be That could be. But what happens is if you have any evidence that can fill in all of the elements of the crime, any evidence at all, then it's a credibility question, and it's not an appellate issue. Appellate issues are things like a motion to suppress was denied, a motion to change of venue was denied, or something like that. Now, motion for judgment of acquittal could be an issue, but there has to be no evidence as to a particular element. If there's any evidence which, if believed by a jury, could be found, then a JOA is not an appellate issue. So I'm just kind of giving some general insights. Like I said, I did not watch your trial, but I know enough about Jeff and these people, my friends in chat, that they believe that it was a very weak case and should have been a not guilty. But like I said, the close ones are the most difficult oftentimes.
Well, we watched this happen just from our outside perspective, Zenith. But what goes through? And we know that they had a very dysfunctional relationship, together again, apart, together apart, together apart, break up, get back together, which is the way things are. But what goes through your mind as a sister when you get the phone call saying your brother has been arrested for murder?
Oh, well, that's not exactly how it happened. I was actually about to leave the house to go to the farm. I called Josh. Josh was there with their dad, Barry, and Barry was on the phone with Zach. And this was the day that Michael Campbell and his buddy had trespassed onto Zach's property. So I was about to head out there when Josh was like, hold on, something's going on. And, we were all on like speakerphone and everything, and they were talking about what was going on, blah, blah. And that's when Barry was like, you need to call the cops. So Zach called the cops. And Josh was like, and he had my dogs. Josh had my dogs. And that was like really the only thing I was concerned about this day. So Josh was like, I'm going to go over to Zach's. So he went over to Zach's, whatever. And he was just kind of giving me a play-by-play of what was happening because they wouldn't let Josh onto the property. And so he was telling me what was going on, what he could see. He calls me and he's like, okay, they've asked me to come to the police station now. So he's following Zach to the police station. And then they just went radio silent, obviously, because they were being interrogated, questioned, whatever you want to call it, which I did not know. I didn't know what was going on, right? I had no idea.
Man.
I just knew these two guys showed up to Zach's house, and now they're at the police station, and I thought it was all because of that, And in my head, I'm just worried about my dogs because they've been in the back of a truck for 12 hours. And so I ended up calling Sadie because I wanted to know what was going on. And I'm not going to get into the details necessarily of that conversation, but she essentially told me that I needed to go get my dogs. And I was just like, okay. So I drove an hour to the police station to then go get my dogs. And Josh happened to be coming out of the police station and lighting up a cigarette and was just like, he like did this motion and told me to like keep going. And I was just like, what is going on?
Wow.
So I had no idea what was going on, except that, from a brief conversation with Sadie, some minor details, but I still didn't understand like what Zach had to do with it, or why all of this was happening. And then after the arrest, so then Josh got home and he kind of gave me the rundown of the things that were happening. And again, I still didn't understand what was going on because, they originally arrested Zach on just the stalking charges. And I was like, okay, so what's his bail and let's get him out. And when they set his bail to something like astronomical for the charges, because it was, I think in the beginning it was 35,000. We were just like, whoa, and then we just had to think like, I mean, it was really confusing because there wasn't a whole lot of information. We didn't know the guy. We didn't know why they thought Zach was so involved. Obviously, we figured it out later. So yeah.
So, I mean, for those of you that in the chat that may not have known or may have forgotten, there was 4 charges. One of stalking his ex-girlfriend Sadie, one of stalking Gutierrez, one of murdering Gutierrez, one of hiding the corpse. And to summarize what I got out of the trial, there's no body, there's no murder weapon. Zach's DNA was nowhere to be found at the murder scene. There was no there. The guy was supposed to have been alone. There was 2 beer bottles open. One of them, I understand, had been processed. I'm not sure if both of the beer bottles had been processed for fingerprints or not. I know the rims had been tested for DNA, and one of them was unidentifiable. But I don't know. There wasn't fingerprints. There was a bloody phone, credit cards, and a money clip found in the back of a freezer. But the door handle on the freezer was never tested for fingerprints. The light switches, the door handles weren't. So there's essentially zero evidence. 1, that the guy's even dead. 2, that anyone had anything to do with this, let alone the person that was accused of this. And they had found a tiny pinprick-sized brown spot in the back of a van that had lots of other similar brown spots in it that were all tested with luminol, the preliminary test, and none of them tested positive for blood. They didn't test that one tiny spot for blood because it was too small. They could either test it for blood or DNA. They went for the DNA, and they found that it was the only thing they could conclusively say was this tiny pinprick of DNA. They couldn't even say what it was. They assumed. She said that it was her belief. The technician said it was her belief that it was blood because it wasn't semen, it wasn't hair, and it wasn't saliva. So it had to have been blood, she thought. But they tested it for DNA. The best they could say was it was a single source donor, and that single source was male. The closest they could come to saying that it was the defendant's DNA was to say he could not be ruled out as a donor of this DNA. And as I mentioned yesterday, and Steve can back me up on this. And when they have a good DNA profile, they will drop numbers. Like there is a 1 in 3.5 trillion chance that it was someone other than the defendant. The best they couldn't even say it's a 50% chance it's him. They could say he can't be ruled out. And that's what people seem to be caught up on, because those are the things that the media is saying. His blood was in the van and it tested positive for his DNA, when neither one of those statements is true.
But that's what we find typically in any of these trials that we cover, is that the drive-by media coverage, they don't even, it's like they aren't even watching the trial. They're just looking for the dramatic elements that they can hype and make it seem exciting. And it's kind of disconnected from the actual evidence. That's why I really don't follow. Like, people are always asking me, guys, have you followed this case over here? And you're listening to this case over here. And unless I'm going to actually watch a trial beginning to end, I don't pay attention, because I know the media just basically lies, and they've got their own little drama soap opera agenda that they want to push. And it's usually unconnected to what the actual evidence is. The problem is that it kind of appeals to that human spirit of, like I said, of wanting this drama and wanting these little soap operas. But we're playing with human lives here. It's not a television show. It's reality. And people, I guess it's a human failing, of human lack of empathy, that we want to play out and project our drama games onto others. But there we are.
Well, and I know, Zenith, you were upset with me. I didn't see the initial chat that you sent where apparently you were pissed at me for my title, which was obsessed ex-boyfriend murder trial, which was just a copy paste from Law and Crime's title.
Yeah, I had no idea that that's what they had labeled it.
And after the first day, just listening to the opening, the state's opening and the first 20 minutes of the defense opening before we got into the potential mistrial issue, just hearing that much, I went, okay, this headline is a little bit unfair. So I changed it to alleged. I added
What
that
was
word because
what was the mistrial issue?
it was this Denny motion. I think you were there. You were on for that part, weren't you? Or the
I know I did watch like 1 or 2 days.
Yeah.
But what was the Denny motion? That rings a bell.
I'm
See,
trying to think how to word this properly here.
Oh, Chandler's got it.
Yeah,
Oh,
this,
yeah,
this
so-
was. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
I say we kind of just got to be careful because we're not supposed to be talking about a lot of stuff that deals with potentially appellate issues.
The
So
Denny
what it
motion-
was
Campbell?
they were talking about, it was during the defense's opening. The defense, she was saying that the police did a really, really bad job. They did their laser focus. This person was identified as a suspect, so they focused entirely on him, and they didn't question or investigate anyone else that was a potential person. And they mentioned the ex-girlfriend by name who had sent a text message that seemed kind of shady. They brought up the text message and her as a potential suspect. And as we were talking about, that was the day that you were watching, Steve, where in Wisconsin law, apparently, if you are going to identify someone else as a potential suspect, as the alternative suspect, you have to do this Denny motion, have a Denny hearing where you have to present whatever evidence.
That does ring a bell, and I remember that was state specific.
Yeah.
And but here's the problem with those kind of state specific laws, and the problem is they're very, I will just say as a general matter, okay, I always have a problem when I do criminal appeals, and whenever I see the defense get limited in any way, it raises a red flag for me, because the state has nothing to lose. The defendant is on trial for their life, right? So to me, it's pretty much wide open door for presenting a defense. You should pretty much be able to say anything in front of a jury in order to create reasonable doubt. And any barriers to a reasonable defense, to me, have constitutional infirmities. Now, a lot of times I'll get, on the other hand, I will say, sometimes I'll get clients who, want to bring in their cellmate, and the cellmate will testify that the defendant told them that they didn't do it, and they want to call them as a witness, right? That kind of thing obviously is not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is presenting a defense and reasonable hypotheses of innocence is the core of making the state prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. You are in fact raising a reasonable doubt. And so to limit and what I call muzzle the defense when a life is on the line, to me, raises a constitutional question and that is an appellate issue.
Well, and how did all of this, affect you leading up to trial? Because there was already one mistrial last year.
Yeah.
That's got to take the wind out of your sails as well. You're thinking finally after X number of years, what was it, 2 years, 2.5 years before the first trial, and then to go, okay, and to have that thing end right after opening statements. Again, for Steve, it was the defense gave, the prosecution gave their opening statement, the defense gave their opening statement, then they found out that the prosecution had not disclosed information that one of the main witnesses had changed her testimony. And it was declared a mistrial.
That's another major. Well, and I know we can't talk specifically about Anderson, and I know that, and I didn't watch these things, but I guess I can share you a story. and I hate to be a cold water guy. All right, I'm kind of like, but the thing is I've been in this long enough that I know that the system is broken and not worthy. All right. And I don't believe in the system. It's don't put your faith in the system, put your faith in God alone. All right. Somebody's saying, let Zenith talk, but I think that she's limited somewhat about some of these issues and what she can say. But I'm not. I had this very issue in a case wherein the state, the issue was, it was a question about whether our client was a shooter or a driver, and the shooter, and there was one eyewitness, And the one eyewitness identified the other person as the shooter. And our client was not was not guilty. He wasn't the shooter. He was just innocently driving this car, and the only eyewitness identified the other guy, right? So that's pretty good. So they go into trial, and at opening statements, the state says, and you'll hear that, this guy, shot and killed the victim. So the first witness is the eyewitness, and the eyewitness gets on the stand and says, oh, well, I thought it was the other guy, but in fact, it was the defendant. And then the defense says, what are you talking about, right? We have a deposition where you ID'd the other guy. And then he says, 2 weeks ago, I went to the prosecutor's office and they showed us this video that was sort of, related to this, and I changed my mind. This is after the jury picked and adds the first witness the state called. So the primary eyewitness that was exculpatory changed their mind 2 weeks earlier based on prosecutorial, influence. And the defense says, what are you talking about? And we have something called a Richardson hearing. So they call a Richardson hearing saying the state didn't disclose this. And here we are in the middle of the trial. Not only did the judge not grant a Richardson hearing, they said, well, that's just a credibility issue for the jury. You can cross them on that, but I'm not even going to grant you a Richardson hearing. It went to the jury, guy got convicted, got life. And the appellate court didn't even write on it. They just rubber stamped it and affirmed it without opinion. So, that's the kind of thing that, that is the eyewitness who changes their story 180 degrees and is in the possession of the state 2 weeks before trial. They don't disclose it until the opening witness. That witness is called at trial, and it was rubber stamped. So, those are the kind of things that I see that completely undermines my faith in any kind of human creation, such as the justice system. Now, I'm not saying that there's zero chances. And the fact that there's a public trial, I will also say that we are public defenders and nobody cares about our people on the bottom end. And this is why a lot of bad law is created, because they're like, well, they're just scumbags and they're convicted felons and who cares about them, right? And so they get ground up and they find legal ways around. But I find that oftentimes appellate courts are political. And when there's political and there's smoke and people that are not public defender clients, they seem to get a different level of justice. And I hate to say that, but that's been my observation. So, anyways, I'm just telling a story. I know this is your thing, and I don't want to. I don't want to intrude on any of your. I know that there's certain prohibitions that your attorneys have told you, so that's definitely respect that. But what I say has nothing to do. I didn't watch the trial. I'm just giving stories, right?
Well, and Zenith, my understanding is while all of this was going on, while all of these things were happening, the mistrial was going on, and it was set for 6 months, and then it was delayed another 6 months. How did the family stay together? What did you guys do as a family to keep yourselves grounded and together?
Well, as Saul told you yesterday, there was actually a gag order on the brothers, right? They couldn't even talk, so I was the only, I want to say I might have been one of the only family members that Zach could actually talk to through that entire time before
For
that
almost
first,
3 years.
before the first mistrial. I think after the first mistrial, they were able to request something that made that go away, which, whew, thank God. Like, I love Zach, but there are things that he needs to talk to them about, and I'm not supposed to be a middleman or whatever. So
yeah, and that puts you in a difficult spot too, where you have to be the middle person.
Were you did you participate in the case in any way, or are you just family support for your?
No, I was there.
Were you a witness?
If to what? No,
in the trial. In the trial, you weren't called as a witness.
No, they didn't call any of us, and I don't. And I guess maybe because we could have only been considered character witnesses or something like that, which the prosecution had plenty of those, but no, they never subpoenaed us or whatever. I was kind of surprised. I had actually been spending a lot of time. So I had just moved to Wisconsin. right before all of this, in March of 2020.
So you were
So
living in Wisconsin at the time, because I know you'd mentioned you'd gone to
yeah,
the
so
farm and whatnot. Okay.
exactly. So I had moved there in March of 2020. I was so excited because, so actually OA and I, were very, very close. So I was telling you, you know, for years I would go up to Wisconsin, and then eventually, after OA was born, there was a year, I believe it was her 6th or 7th birthday. She actually came with Sadie and Zach to Texas to visit me, and we went to, it was for her birthday, and it actually falls on Eeyore's birthday, which is a huge festival here, and I was super excited to take them. Sorry, I need to slow down. Take them to that. And then after that trip, she actually started coming and staying the summers with me. She would stay for a week or two during the summer, and she'd fly down and stay with me. So OA and I were very, very, very close. And as far as things affecting me, that's probably been one of the hardest.
I'm sure. I can only imagine.
Because I love that little girl a lot. And you wanted to know one of my first reactions to when all of this happened and Zach was in jail. My first question to the attorneys and to my brothers and stuff was, does this mean I can't talk to OA anymore? So that sucked a lot.
That must have been very hard.
Yeah. So
and you were isolated from everybody, and he was isolated from everybody.
Yeah.
You had to be the middleman and things. Once this gag order got lifted, I mean, how much contact did you guys maintain with him? Because even maintaining contact with people in jail is not cheap.
I mean, the phone calls, phone calls aren't terrible. In the beginning, the phone system was different, so the messaging was a lot easier to do. It was nice because, you know, if I needed to talk to my brother about something, I could shoot him a message and say, like, yo, call me. Or
Can I give you a suggestion too? I'm sorry, I'm interrupting an emotional moment here, but I am such a cold-hearted appellate lawyer, and I apologize for that. But as you're talking, and it's breaking my heart a little bit, and people want a little positivity. I'm going to give you a referral, or at least a suggestion, just something to look at, and it's something called juryinvestigations.com. And I don't know, like I said, I didn't watch your case except for that one day, and I don't know, but juryinvestigations.com is a friend of mine named Mary Rose Peterson, and her husband, Marty Peterson, who is a former client of mine. And he turned down a probationary offer the day before trial, went to trial, lost, and got life in prison. And Mary Rose, when she called me, and of course she is a very religious, faithful Christian, and she said to me, "I just have faith in the system," and I gave her the same downers that I'm telling you right now, right? No, and she says, "What can I do to help you?" And I said, "Well, nothing. The appellate record is what it is. The objections exist. You can't add or detract from the appellate record. However, there is something called post-conviction relief, which is that wherein you can bring in, now this is in Florida, and I know that it does exist in other states." So she actually was one of those few people that actually listened to me. And she went out and started investigating the jury, and she found outrageous misconduct on the part of the jury. In fact, the jury foreman was Facebook friends with the alleged victim of the case, and had connections. And in fact, I did a Rumble interview with her. Maybe I should look that up for you, but I'll post it in the chat, or maybe I'll put it in the private chat and you can share it. But she set up this whole thing, and she got her husband, based on jury misconduct, a new trial, and they pled and got time served, which was over 5 years, but he's out. And one of my most heartwarming pictures I have is Marty Peterson walking out of jail after a life sentence. So, oh look, Rose's law. See, Rosie, your wrenchers or mods are really working. But you can take a look at my interview with her and what she does now. I know she now has done over 65 cases where she investigates jurors for juror misconduct. Now that is post appeal, but it's something that needs to be worked on immediately. So I would highly recommend you look at, just first thing I would do is just watch the Rumble interview that I did with Mary Rose Peterson, and just see if it's something that your family might want to explore. And she has a way, she has a system. She's amazing, and she's like my buddy. She's pretty relentless too. If you get her on your team, and that's something that you could do in furtherance of your case. So I'll look that up and post it in private chat and regular chat too for the thing. So that's something I would recommend. And
there are people here in chat that have some specific questions for you, Zenith. Some of them are kind of weird, but that's my chat. Wendy H says, so many victims of this travesty. Every family should rally around their loved ones as you have for your brother. Thank you for modeling love. Yeah. I think it's a very good statement. You know,
thank you.
Yeah. And Cargo Pilot Guy says, Sadie made daughter hate Zach, and it's so obvious. That's one of the things we can't really get into, but I will say the same thing I said yesterday with Saul. You're not the first person to have that particular opinion. Flux, again, I just reconnected with my siblings after almost 10 years. You just pick right back up. Nothing like having all your brothers and sisters together.
So I just put it in. I put that link in private chat. I'll put it in regular chat also.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that, Flux. I mean,
Flux is good, man. She knows.
I love
and
Flux.
It sounds like your family is incredibly supportive of each other.
Oh yeah. I mean, I moved to Wisconsin because that doesn't matter, but it was I needed help. I needed a lot of help, and my brother Josh, who, like, you asked me who I was closest to, and I was definitely closest to Zach. And I'd only ever spent a handful of times even with Josh throughout my life, but I was going through some things and essentially told him I needed a new life. And he said, my door is always open. And it wasn't a couple of weeks later that I was packing my car up and driving 22 hours to take him up on that offer. So,
wow.
Yeah. And Zach, I know Saul was telling a story about how Zach helped him get his first car or something like that. And I actually have a very similar story. I'd started working probably like when I was like 16, because my dad was quite older. He was 50 when I was born, 53 when he became a single dad, raising me by himself. And so when I was 16, I decided that for my birthday, what I wanted was to get a job, like a legitimate job, so I could help with the bills and stuff. And every place we lived, I always found a job close to work so I could walk to work every day. And, I was telling my brother, like, it's just, I want to be able to work somewhere where I can make more money and blah, blah, blah. I just don't have a car. My dad can't afford a car, and I'm trying, but I'm also whatever. And it's hard to save what you think is a really large sum of money when you're that young, And Zach was like, you know what, little sister? He goes, how about I match whatever you can save, save up a certain amount, up to the biggest thing you think you can, and I'll match that. So I think I saved like $3,000. And I was like, I've got 3,000. And he was like, you think you can find a car for 6? And I was like, I think I can. And I drove that little Honda Accord until it didn't go no more. Over 300,000 miles on that car I put.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a good advert for Honda.
Yeah. But Zach also helped me learn how to budget money and save money, and helped me get my first car, as well as my driver's license. So
wow.
He sounds like a really caring brother.
They all are. Yeah. They all are. We all love each other very, very much, and would do anything for each other. So,
well, the fact that you're here and that you're advocating for him is very special.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cargo pilot guy says Zenith is pretty.
Thanks.
And Nicholas has chimed in. Thank you so much for your super chat, Nicholas, and everyone else. Thank you so much for your super chats that we've talked about recently. Hey, folks, I wish I could be there. Work got in the way. I know Nick was really looking forward to talking with you, Zenith. He talked to Solomon earlier in the week.
Yeah, I know.
And what do you have? This directed at me here. Kyle Bogue says, "I told you Vices there would be simping. I just didn't have Flux being the first simp on my bingo card, though." Well, you know, and opinion here that we can't really get into. The Lonely Kakapo says, "If I had one major issue with how the case was run, it was they should have pushed for a mistrial after the gun incident." So one thing we can smile and nod at.
Can I just say that simping ain't easy?
Yeah. And Unhung Hero says, "What about the blatant lies Gravely said during his closing? Complete misrepresentation of the evidence should be a strong point of appeal. No? Unfortunately, no. The opening statements and closing arguments, anybody can pretty much say anything they want.
Well, I wrote an article on this.
Of course you did.
In Ideas and Answers in Law, which is the article on prosecutorial misconduct and closing arguments. It is a Florida-based thing, but it applies more generally because it's based on national standards. And that is How to Present Ethical and Effective Trials, a Guide for Prosecutors, page 217, goes through all the problems that can occur. Actually, what that article, that was a law review article that was driven by a review of every reversal in the state of Florida for the last 30 years in which a trial was reversed for prosecutorial misconduct in closing arguments. And as a survey of those cases, I came up with a set of categories of common actually everything that every case that had been reversed based on prosecutorial misconduct in closing, I categorized into, I think, 7 categories. So if people have the Ideas and Answers in Law book, they can look up that thing. And actually, you can actually get that article for free on SSRN, which is a academic website that provides academic articles because it was published in a law review. So it is available academically for free. But it is summarized in a way that kind of whether or not that misrepresentation rises to the level of an appellate issue, a lot of that depends on, was there an objection? What was the remedy? Was it sustained? Was it overruled? And how pervasive was the misconduct? So those are questions.
Well, man, I mean, one of the interesting things talking, because again, we don't really want to go too hard on the prosecution and create problems that way. But as we said yesterday, those of you that watched the Kyle Rittenhouse trial and were shocked at how bad Binger was prosecuting Kyle Rittenhouse, just remember this is his boss. That was Binger's boss that was prosecuting this case. So where he learned it.
You're touching on a much larger problem, and the much larger problem is the prosecutor function. And of course, we're witnessing this across the board in our country. And that is the failure of our prosecutors to uphold the standards and the role for which they play. They have now become advocates for guilt rather than advocates for the law. And this cheating idea, every time a prosecutor cheats, they are betraying their oath to the law. And what I mean by that is, let's say that there's a law that, like, let's say that the case law says a prosecutor shall not misrepresent facts that came out, which is, true, right? Well, the prosecutor upholds the law by following the law. When they cut corners and they cheat, they are in fact betraying their role as a prosecutor. Now, the problem is we have unchecked power in these prosecutors' office, and you're seeing that, and not to get too political, but let's just say there's some cases in the news where you are seeing that currently, and that is that prosecutors, no consequence. It's unchecked power, and unchecked power, power corrupts absolutely, and unchecked power is an anathema to the founding fathers' ideas of checks and balances. When you have no check on the prosecutorial power, then you have unchecked and absolute power. And then therefore you get no consequence to cheating and no consequence to betrayals of the law. You say, well, you took an oath. So what? What's the enforcement mechanism? So, and then you get appellate courts that are populated by former prosecutors and former judges who don't want to question. And it's just a system of dysfunction.
Well, and Zenith, how were you holding yourself together when you saw some of the things that Gravely was saying and doing during the course of the trial?
I wasn't holding myself together. I just wasn't in that courtroom to scream my head off. Like I was screaming mad.
What upset you the most? Was it what he said, or just the sneaky snakiness of it all, or what?
It's the fact that like I was there, not at trial, but like through this entire process. I know, kind of like Saul was saying yesterday, we knew what they had, but we didn't know fully of what they were going to say. But I was spending a lot of time with Zach and OA at the time that that this was all leading up, because I had just moved to Wisconsin and my end all be all was OA. I wanted to spend as much time with her as possible. So wherever she was at, I was going, you know? And, you know, we had, like, he talked about Sam, our other sister's birthday party, and they were there as like a family, like nothing out of the ordinary was happening. The one conversation that I can even remember having about RG was just very much like Sadie's seeing this guy, and like it was like he was concerned as far as like his children go. You know, he wanted to make sure his children were going to be around someone who was safe. But aside from that, we didn't talk about it. You know, it wasn't like this obsessed, crazy thing. Like we were just living our day-to-day lives. And then all of a sudden it was like,
well, and I want to take a break here. I'm going to take a couple of these chats out of order, and then talk about some very important things here that I know you definitely want to talk about. One is Indigo Luna. Does Zach have a pen pal? I'm asking for a friend, lol. And the second part of that question is, where did it go? Can we donate to Zach's legal fund? I'd be happy to contribute. Well,
yes,
let me mention the answer to those two questions. One, there has been there is a Give Send Go that has been set up, and I wanted to get to this a long time ago, but we were busy talking and chatting amongst ourselves, and I kind of, me being semi ADHD, have really difficult time focusing on on a lot of things. But we're here now, and we'll mention it again. But I wanted to go through here and read the Give Send Go, and then give you the details. I'll post it here in chat as soon as I bring this window up. All right, this is the Give Send Go here, the free Zachariah Anderson. Okay, I just put the link in the chat here now. So all right, we did that. Let's see here. I hate when I increase the size of the windows here. There we go. So we're the family of Zachariah Anderson, and we're asking you, can we see that okay? Can we see that clearly? I'll make it a little bit bigger. And we're asking for your help to raise money for legal expenses. On March 22nd, 2023, Zachariah Anderson was wrongfully convicted on several charges in Kenosha, Wisconsin. He's currently facing a possible life sentence in prison. We won't go into all of the details here, as the trial was already highly publicized, and we hope that if you watched it, you came to the same conclusion. His guilty verdict was a miscarriage of justice. What we're arguing here isn't unprecedented or unique. This is a tragedy that happens far more frequently than anyone might suspect. According to the National Registry of Exonerations, the rate of wrongful convictions in the U.S. is estimated to be somewhere between 2% and 10%. With a prison population of about 2.3 million, there could be anywhere between 46,000 to 230,000 innocent people incarcerated. Proven innocent people have served more than 23,950 years in prison so far. And that so far part is the kicker for that. According to wrongly convicted statistics, official misconduct is the cause is the cause of wrongful convictions in 31% of murder exonerations. That source is Criminal Legal News. Wrongful conviction statistics show false accusations are present in 70% of wrongful convictions from Death Penalty Org. False accusations along with perjury were present in 101 of the 143 exonerations in 2019. That is 70.6%. Media coverage of crime contributes to wrongful convictions in two capacities. First, the prejudicial media narratives, which we've talked about earlier, play on public emotions, putting pressure on police investigators to apprehend a suspect. This can lead to rushed investigations and tunnel vision. Sometimes the puzzle pieces don't fit, but if the investigators have been slanted toward a suspect, they force everything to fit to fulfill their duty to apprehend. Second, once a person has been charged with a crime, pre-trial publicity can lead to trial by media. As jurors are selected from the local public that is exposed to these publications, pre-trial publicity can become a serious issue when the material is prejudicial. Ultimately, news media sensationalizes or dramatizes crimes to entertain their viewers. This negatively impacts on the right to a fair trial. Zach unfortunately faced all of these setbacks. From the day of his arrest, local media coverage slanted the story with bias, only reporting information that lent itself to his guilt. Because Zach was implicated in the missing persons case immediately, there was never an unbiased police investigation or media reporting. He was connected as the face opposite the missing person since day one, and he was tried and convicted in the court of public opinion long before his jury trial. Zach is not a perfect man in any way. No one has ever or will ever claim this, but he is a good man that has been unjustifiably assailed by our justice system, as too many have. In the meantime, devastatingly, there is still another man missing that was robbed of his own resolution the moment Zach was falsely implicated. If an investigation and conviction still leaves more questions than answers, then justice has not been served. Our campaign funding will go towards legal expenses. So there's the answer to your question. Where do we can we contribute to his legal fund? This is it. Our campaign funding will go towards legal expenses necessary to investigate the truth of the matter and find closure for all victims involved. We welcome and appreciate each and every donation, big or small. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor said it best: justice is served when a guilty man is convicted and an innocent man is not. If you want to continue receiving updates on the status of Zach's case, please feel free to join our social media pages. We'll talk about the Facebook group here in a minute. But if you go to this Give, Send, Go, which has been posted in chat, is givesendgo.com/ZA Anderson. The goal is $54,000, and there's currently $5,650 that have been raised. If this is something you want to contribute to, please feel free. If it's something you don't agree with or you don't want to do, you don't have to do it. But if it's something you do want to help contribute to, please feel free to go there and support that. And there's also a Facebook group which has been started. I'll put the link down here as well. And this has all of the contact details for contacting him in jail. And I believe Solomon said he was being moved on May 16th.
May 16th is the sentencing.
Yeah.
So
okay. So yeah, there will be changes after that.
Yeah.
And
that's
and
really
so
that was a very well written. Very well written. I think the chat agrees, and I agree. It was very well done. Whoever put that together.
Jen
and you're singing a song. I'll tell you that the exonerations, National Registry of Exonerations, is a wonderful cause, a wonderful place. And I want to explain to people about that just a tiny bit. And that is that exonerations, when they're making these calculations, people get on the exonerations page, and that means that they are proven innocent by DNA, future DNA. Now, there's a whole nother subset of people that are not exoneratable, but that are wrongfully convicted. And that's why the universe of wrongful convictions, I think, is much greater than what is reflected on the exonerations page, because the exonerations, those are people who are sent to prison, and then there's some DNA test or there's something that proves them innocent, as opposed to people who are not guilty but get convicted anyway. But then there may be no DNA, there may be no mechanism by which they can prove their innocence, but yet they didn't do it. And so you need to understand what the exonerations page is and what it's talking about. It's a very narrow, small little target, and the larger target is people that didn't do it but can't prove themselves innocent. and those people will just languish in prison. And a lot of that, like I said, 31% is from prosecutorial misconduct. That's why I pull my hair out and rant and rave when prosecutors cheat, because there's no excuse for it. They are betraying their oath. They're betraying the law, which is their function. Rant over.
Well, their dedication
John-
should be to finding the truth, correct? I mean, that's the
It should be.
understanding. It
It should be, but they turn into advocates for guilt.
Yeah.
And
That would've
they are
been-
not advocates for guilt. They are advocates.
Go ahead, Zenith. Oh, sorry.
That would have been that was the most frustrating part of Gravely's everything, Gravely. And just knowing that what he was saying was majority like lies. And there was no way to make it stop, and it just kept going and going and going. The timeline that he created made absolutely no sense. To say that Zach did this on his own and in the way that he did. I mean, I think if you join,
How big is Zach?
I mean, he's 6 foot, maybe 6'1".
So a much taller guy,
He's
a
tall.
much taller victim. The victim was much taller. Weighed in, they said, about 270.
The victim
yet,
weighed a whole lot more. Zach
Yeah.
had serious back problems where, I mean, he would spend days like in bed on the couch, whatever, when he couldn't move. He was not doing heavy lifting of any sorts at this time, because it would put his back into such bad spasms. And
Are you saying he would have problems taking out a much larger man who weighed 270 pounds with a baseball bat, hoisting him over his shoulder, dragging him out to the van?
there was no dragging. There was
disposing
no
of the
dragging.
body.
Remember?
Carried him over his
Yeah.
shoulder or something out to the. You're saying that he would have problems doing this all by himself without leaving a single speck of DNA at the murder scene.
If you're in the Facebook group, we chat about this all the time. And I think one night, I said, I want a demonstration. I said, I think that the defendant should have gone out there with a 270. In fact, I corrected myself. I was like, because his mother said that he had lost weight and weighed 240 pounds. Fine. 240-pound dummy. But I don't know. Sorry, I'm about
Doesn't
to
make a
start
big
talking.
difference, I don't think.
I'm not going to start.
Well, you were talking about carrying out a simulation with a
simulation.
240-pound
Make a
mannequin. is what you
juror
were
do that to see how reasonable that theory is. Like,
Well,
And,
Solomon
I mean,
was
we don't
talking
really-
about that yesterday.
just
Oh, sorry, Jeff.
it was maddening. The entire
go ahead,
trial was
Chandler.
maddening.
I was just going to
And
say,
it
like,
would-
I have chronic pain issues, and Solomon was saying that, if he did contracting work, Zach, and he like lifted something heavy or he pulled something, he'd have to be in bed the whole next day. That's true to my experience. I've had, it's like I'll feel better, I'll clean up around the house, I'll lift something that's, certainly less than 240 or 270 pounds, and I'll be exhausted for a couple of days after that. I'll have to be in bed. So I'm not going to be going and getting my taxes done. I'm not going to be going to Walmart to get my shopping done. I'm going to be out of commission.
Yeah.
So if I was to kill somebody and to move their body, proportionate to me, like Zach, it's not going to happen. It's just not physiologically possible.
And the timeline to think that he could have gone to Kenosha, not on any camera footage, done the crime, whatever with the body, and to be back home in the amount of time that they say it took place. It's
taking a route to avoid all the cameras.
Camera.
Impossible. Impossible. I don't understand. I'll never understand how the jury got it the way they got it. I mean, when you look like we talked about the luminol testing, if you look at a crime scene that's been cleaned up and they do the luminol on there, sorry, I'm getting mad. I'm going to start cussing. That stuff lights up.
Feel free to be cursy.
that stuff lights up like the freaking 4th of July. You know what I mean? Like it's very apparent. It's obvious. And when they did the luminol testing on the back of Zach's van and looked in there and they were like, oh yeah, this is our guy. Like what? Like
it was dark.
It's dark. Totally there's dark. Nothing. There's absolutely not one single. I think Saul was saying that one part near the door lit up or something, but it was probably paint. I don't know. But when you
could also be bleach or rust, I believe that's what they were
clearly not evidence of a crime scene or a big bloody body in the car that had been cleaned up with Clorox wipes. Like, give me
Yeah.
I know
and
the morning after I
was
kill
in
somebody, I'm going to
Texas.
Walmart.
yeah,
Yeah.
gonna go do my taxes
Casually.
casually.
And
Yeah. I was
Iris
so-
in Texas says, thank you so much, by the way, Iris. Says, how can there not be a mistrial / overturn on appeal with everything the prosecution did so sneakily? Again, you're not the only one that has that, and we talked about that just a minute ago. I know you sent that super chat a long time ago. I wanted to get that.
If you want me to address that a little bit more specifically, was there a mistrial motion made at the trial?
Which one?
Was there were multiple mistrial motions?
There was about 5 mistrials. There was 5 potential mistrials during the course of this brief
Okay,
trial.
well then that was preserved because there has to be an objection. And see, the appellate world is reviewing the law and the orders of the judge, because the judge should be the lawgiver. So if the judge makes a legal error in one of his rulings, then that's something that's subject to appellate review. So, for example, if there is a motion for mistrial that should have been granted but was not, then that is something that can be appealed. If you say, well, this was just all wrong, but there was never any objection and never any motion, never any ruling by the judge, then that is generally not reviewable. Of course, there's always exceptions in law, but generally that's the case.
Yeah,
Well,
Joe had a problem with that.
Yeah, but I know, Steve, you said here in the private chat that you need to go in a few minutes, but I want to get to one thing to hear Zenith's take on this one thing, and something I know you saw, Steve, before you go. So I want to hear like both of the opinions on this. First of all, but Flux, we'll get to your question here in a little bit. Where are we at here? Some of these are Steve specific that we want to get to when he leaves. But first of all, I guess, well, let's address that. And then, when Steve goes, we can go and talk about the other personal things. So I want to get Steve's take on this. But first, Zenith, you're watching the trial, and as I mentioned yesterday, there was only what I could think of as being two possibly could be construed as direct evidence. One was the tiny pinprick size spot of brownish whatever it was in the back of the van, which we talked about earlier. The other one was Munch the prison snitch.
Are we seriously going to talk about Munch?
Yeah, who
I would love your
managed to
take.
overhear Zachariah's confession. Zachariah allegedly confessed in his sleep he was having a nightmare saying, die, 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 motherfucker. And then he jumped off the rack and I told him to look me in the eyes and tell me he didn't do it. And he looked me in the eye and he said, I did it. What was your reaction, Zenith?
I give it a negative rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
I mean, did you throw something? Did you swear? Did you just sit there stunned? What was your reaction to that?
I mean, so for the majority, I wish I could send you the little GIF, whatever you call them. There's like this confused bunny. And it's basically just like, like that was my face half of the trial, just And honestly, if it hadn't been, and I've said this to my family 100 times, like I knew the evidence or lack thereof. I knew everything going into this. I wasn't blind going into this trial. I knew what was going to come up. I knew what was going to be said. As far as, the accusations and blah, blah, blah. I didn't know how it was going to play out, obviously. But I was confused half the time. I can only imagine the jury was confused because they weren't even in there for all of the objection arguments and everything. Like I didn't follow true crime, or I didn't follow cases or anything like that before this. So I had never followed a trial from start to finish. And I felt that I was like, is this normal? Is this normal? And if it hadn't have been for your commentary and y'all's insight, I would have just been like, I don't know. I would have sat there confused as all get out.
We were all pretty much confused and stunned by Munch's jailhouse confession testimony.
How was that confusing though? It was just very obviously scripted and a bunch of baloney.
Well, I mean, it's confusing that he was even let in. And Steve, I know you guys, Solomon's going to be on with Megan Fox next week when she gets back from vacation, I understand. I was watching Steve and Megan Fox react to Munch's testimony. Steve, you were kind of stunned. The first time I've ever seen you stunned to silence.
Oh, well, yes, yeah, keeping Gosney quiet, it's tough. Well, I will say that I would also refer you, and I know that I've got to go here, but I'm going to refer you to an interview I did on Rumble about 3 months ago with a fellow named Dr. Jeffrey Neuschatz, which is Neuschatz. I put it in private chat, and he is the leading expert on jailhouse informants. And he is a brilliant professor. I think he's in Alabama. And he wrote a book on, I didn't write everything. He wrote some stuff too. And he is of the strong opinion that jailhouse informants should be excluded generally from prosecution for a number of reasons. So I would highly recommend that you review my interview on Rumble with Dr. Jeffrey Neuschatz. He's a professor at University of Alabama in Huntsville, and he has a book out on jailhouse informants, which is called Jailhouse Informants: Psychological and Legal Perspectives. So anyway, so there's a lot of stuff that see. This is the thing. Once a conviction happens, appeals are extremely narrow but extremely deep. Trials are much broader. So you kind of do this broad-based attack, and it's sort of this broad thing about guilty or not guilty. Whereas when you do an appeal, you find an issue, for example, whether the jailhouse informant should be allowed to testify. And then it becomes a complete deep dive into that issue. That's why, I wrote an article on this, because when I find an issue that I latch onto like a pit bull on a leg, you just do the research and you drill as far down as you can possibly do. So I would recommend people who are interested in that issue to check out my interview and check out Dr. Neuschatz's book. It's also Jonathan Golding is his co-author.
And before you go, first of all, for me, I think that is the absolute worst jailhouse confession testimony that I've ever heard in my entire life up to this point. That was just so ridiculous. And
actually, that's what Dr. Jeffrey, I'll say Dr. Jeffrey, actually talks about, is how so many false convictions are obtained through jailhouse informants, because the people in these jails, they're facing huge prison terms. There is such great crushing incentives for them to give the prosecutor what they want. And when the prosecutor becomes an advocate for guilt, they'll throw anything up there. They don't care if it's true or not. It's just evidence on my side that I'm going to throw up because it's on my side if you're an advocate for guilt. If you're an advocate for truth, then you would filter those type of things. Just like we talk about gunshot bullet matching. If they were advocates for the truth, they wouldn't allow that in. But it becomes this toy. It becomes, here's something that I can use to convict somebody. And so they use it because they have no barriers, no ethical barriers to presentation.
Well, he was such a clear liar that I certainly hope whatever deal he was trying to arrange just got pulled out from underneath him, because he was such a clear liar. If that gets around, he's going to have to spend the rest of his life in protective custody, or it's going to be a disaster for him, which I hope happens. That's just. But before you go, Steve, there's a few Steve quips we got to get here from the super chat.
I've got to go in about 5 minutes here.
XComer, there's a few of them, so we'll give you the 30-second answers. XComer Triple Z said, next book, Steve, Lawyer's Guide to the Jury Room. Have you thought about doing a book for jurors, prospective jurors?
I have so many books in the kitty. I've got 2 children's books coming up that I've written one. In fact, somebody in chat who shall remain unnamed is working on the illustrations. The second book I finished it the other night. I'm sitting on it because I really want to contemplate it and think about it. And then I have another law book that I'm contemplating working up, and I've got it outlined, and it's called Death Penalty Designs, Understanding Capital Punishment in the United States. That's the working title, because they are so interested in my views on capital punishment. But this is a good example. Do you want to empower these prosecutors with the power of life and death? Right. I mean, this is the, people say, well, I don't like this one guy. I think we should kill him. But that's not the issue before the court. That's not the issue before the public. The public's question is do you want to empower these prosecutors with the power of life and death over the citizenry? I mean, that's one argument of many. In fact, I did a whole Rumble statement because everybody's always asking me about my position on the death penalty, and it's complex. It's not an easy question. So I did an hour and a half on Rumble going soup to nuts, top to bottom of all my reasons why I'm against it. And because of that, people are always asking me, because I'm in the middle of this system and I do capital stuff. And it's like they don't have the perspective that I do, and they haven't had to work through it. So I've explained myself. And I actually want people that oppose me to get on my Rumble and comment, because I want to steel man the opposition, and I want to create a fair presentation of both sides. Anyway, off on a tangent.
The last two things we've got here from Cargo Pilot Guy. Steve has probably written an article on the fire suppression on my 747. Thank you for that.
Actually,
and he also says, God bless you, Gosney. I hope my little sister grows into a lawyer like you.
That's
I think those are all of our Steve specific
thank you
comments and chats we've got here. Well, thank you for popping in, Steve. It was good to hear from you, and you've given some good resources, I think, for them to.
Well, you got a lot of stuff,
at.
a lot of research, and I don't know who the right person is over in the Anderson family to dig into this stuff, but I mean, you've got Mary Rose Peterson's juryinvestigations.com. You've got Jeffrey Nunshitz on the jailhouse informants. And you got to get a good appellate lawyer, which is difficult. So definitely get the funding, push the funding pages, and let's get some support for the Anderson family. From what I hear, it's quite a bit of injustice, and there's too much of it in our system. So
yeah, that's why I'm
I'll
here.
pray. I'll put you in my prayers, Zenith. Thank you very much for letting me talk over your interview.
Yeah.
Thanks for stopping in, Steve. That's all we can say is thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
God bless you, man.
Insights. Mm-hmm. Take care, sir. We've had people putting a lot of positive comments here in the chat. Just wanted to run these by you, Zenith, in case you didn't see them. And one thing is, and I wanted to get to this before Steve left, because Steve is a musician. I pretend to be. You're the real deal. Have you turned to music to help you through this?
Oh yeah, every day. Especially like a lot of the songs that I know my brother and I love. That's also something we talk about a lot when he calls. I guess before the whole tablet situation changed and he could actually spend more time on it, he was always like, give me music, Z, I need to hear new stuff. And he'd trust my opinion. So, and then he'd give me songs.
Can I ask what your favorite bands are together? Like what bands you love, the two of you?
Probably some obscure, like more, what would be the genre? Like techno, like not techno, but
okay.
Ones it wouldn't be like the things you would just like think of, like off the top of my head. I couldn't, Mount Everest. I can't even think of who sings the song. Bunch of random music though, stuff that's not your typical like on the radio.
Yeah.
Stuff.
I love obscure music. I have pretty obscure tastes myself, so I always like to know like if somebody likes a really out there band I haven't heard of. I always want to go listen to them.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of I've got them all on my playlist and I could send them to you. You know what I mean? Like
I'd love to listen to that.
Because now chat's going into full speculation mode here. Dave Luxton, synthwave, indie. We've got.
I mean, yeah, indie. I mean, one of my favorite songs that I like to sing, like that reminds me of my brothers, and I always send to my brothers is that, hey brother, na 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 na. That whatever that song is. Oh, if the sky is falling down for you, there's nothing in this world I wouldn't do. It's kind of like my anthem to my brother right now. So
you have such a beautiful voice.
Rose's Law said, I've heard your singing and I love your songs, which also raised the question, the statement, which Zenith was my stepsister. And where do we find Zenith's music?
Oh, so that is not about me. You can find some of the stuff on Spotify. Um, a lot of duet stuff with other artists that they have out there. So yeah, I
And
do a
Warrior
lot of
Biatch. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I
yeah,
didn't mean to
sorry.
cut you
I
off.
do a lot
Continue.
of studio stuff. I work with other artists and I do, background vocals and harmonies and granted, like I would love to get my own stuff out there, but that's a
And anything
job.
majorly popular that we would generally be aware of that you've done background vocals for?
Super popular? No. Search Austin Mays. Done some stuff with him and Ben Tyler Johnson. But
Hmm.
yeah. Oh no, I hit a button or something. This isn't
Well,
my
we can still see you and hear you, so it hasn't affected that.
okay, sorry. I'm like, this
You're good.
isn't my computer. I don't know. I'm gonna hit cancel.
Streaming is a little
Well.
complicated. You have to get used to it. It's a learning curve for sure. I mean, the first time that I streamed, my camera went sideways, and
Oh, yeah,
Hayden was
that
playing
happens a
along,
lot.
so he turned himself upside down, which was pretty funny. And then I
Yeah,
just
but
totally like disappeared from the stream. It's complicated.
Avicii.
You're good though.
Yes, Avicii. That's hey
I love
brother,
Avicii.
Avicii.
Avicii is
Yeah,
great.
Yeah.
that's it.
And Warrior Biatch said, please tell Zenith that I am praying for her and her family. I'm so sorry this happened to your family. May God bless you and help you gather as much information to right this horrible wrong.
Yeah, and don't worry about my music. That's not why I'm here. I'm here for my brother Zach. So please, if you really want to do something, search, go find us on Facebook, our Facebook group. I'll talk to you all in there. Gifts and Go, got to push that because we put the family pretty much put everything into the defense the last 3 years, and we as a family, we just really, Zach, we need help now as far as getting the PIs. And we do want to do, like Steve was talking about, jury investigation. We would love to do that, but all of that is not cheap. So,
Yeah. And Lynn Dalton, it sounds like someone you know, says, thank you for taking me and Z in the beginning. You can see daily our crew growing, great ideas and eagerness to turn this around. We love you all so much.
yeah, the Facebook group has been great as far as, like you were asking how I was holding up. I think
Yeah.
to know that so many people are out there that are on Zach's side and can see through the bullshit
Shit.
bullshit that the trial was. I they've helped tremendously. I think it's interesting. Lawyers, there are so many lawyers that have reached out. Unfortunately, none of them are in Wisconsin, I guess, but like all over that have just, I mean, they don't understand how the verdict came back guilty. And I think that that says a lot to have so many professional opinions that,
Yeah.
you know, that definitely helps. But I mean, I've also heard so much about the appeals being less than fun to go through and so hard to get. So, but I do know that
Yeah.
I know I can't talk about the appeals, but I do know that we are working on a lot and that they are hopeful. So,
When while all of this is going on, where do you go? What's your greatest sense of what gives you the greatest your comfort zone? What is that gives you the most comfort, and what do you think is Zach's main source of comfort at this point?
oh God. Okay, well, mine would either be my horse. Spend a lot of time with my horse and my baby. I've got a baby that's about to turn 1.
Oh,
So there's a lot of focus there. He just learned how to walk. He's walking. Oh, that's crazy.
cool.
Yeah, super cool. It's my
That's so
first
awesome.
it's
Congratulations.
things. It's my first baby, so it's been a lot of fun, I guess. But the walking is great.
What
But
about Zach? I mean, what's he doing for help and support
I know
to
he
get him
know
through
like,
these
so
things?
we talk probably every other day now, so he knows that he has a lot of support behind him. I know that helps him. I know he misses his kids dearly. Um, I I know he talks to his attorneys, and so they know what they've got in the works, and so he seems pretty positive and hopeful in that aspect. And just having so many people come together to stand behind him, and the numbers keep growing, the more we're able to talk and get his story out there. We don't want it to just be yesterday's news. We want to make
No, because
awareness
you're
not
gonna have
just,
to live with this.
yeah, we don't want to make, not just for Zach, but I think it's opened my eyes up to a whole world of wrongful convictions, and just how, unfortunately, how not uncommon this is, which, you think is crazy. I know somebody commented something that I posted on, and they were just like, juries don't get it wrong. You're just like, okay,
Juries
like,
get it wrong all the time.
all the
Yeah.
time. And,
All the
I'm not
time.
going to argue with those people.
Yeah. Well, are you surprised by this? I mean, you talked about the trial by public media, law and crime, the thing. Are you surprised by the amount of support, the amount of people that are actually there for you and are supporting you and
Yes.
are sending you their love?
Yes, I could never have imagined so many people would have come together and um, just shared such kind words, and um, the amount of hours that they've put into helping us like just tear this trial apart. It's really hard for me to go back and watch the trial now that the verdicts happened, going back and knowing what the outcome is. It's almost impossible for me because it just hurts every time I hear a lie. Every time I
Yeah.
wish something would have been different for whatever reason. I get really emotional, but there's people that are watching this trial over and over and over again, people's testimonies over and over and over and over, and dissecting them and putting them in a chronological order. So because they didn't ask the questions like what happened this day, then the next day, like they jump around all over the place, And when you take and dissect someone's testimony and really put it in order of what they say happened, it makes no sense. You can find the holes, you can find the lies, and you don't even have to know the people to know. Cause like, it's easy for me to have watched the trial and someone say something and me be like, objection,
Yeah.
they're fucking lying,
Yeah.
How do you know?
Well, you've
I
seen
was
us.
there.
We do that too.
Yeah.
We'll yell at the, at the screen
Yeah.
and be like, what is he talking about? Like when like in the closing when the DA was like, and they found the body, and I was like, what? Like we were all yelling at,
Yeah.
When,
when did that happen?
Yeah, like 5 minutes ago, because that wasn't a thing the last 3 years.
Brand
Yeah,
new.
so there are people though that are doing this and taking the time to try and help us in every way they possibly can, and we cannot thank them enough. I can't thank them enough. Zach can't thank them enough.
Well, this is an interesting question that someone had for you. What are your thoughts? This is Amy. Thank you so much for the super chat, Amy. What are your thoughts on what the jury thought after seeing all the dirty, the douchery, dick? I don't know what that last word is.
Dickery?
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 But anyway,
I would
let's
guess
see.
dickery.
What are my thoughts
let-
on what the jury
Let's say
thought?
dickery. Yeah.
After seeing, you mean like after they made their verdict and maybe went home and rewatched it? Or I'm not sure I understand the question.
I don't really either. But answer that question how you want. I mean, what do you think the jury was thinking after some of this?
I couldn't tell you what that jury was thinking because I can't relate. I saw a really interesting question yesterday that I actually wanted to answer
What was that?
opinion. You asked him if there was ever a point
Yeah, I
that
was going
he
to get there.
thought,
Did you? What was there ever a minute of doubt, or was there any questions, and if there was, how did you deal with it?
yeah. So no, that's going to be my answer is no, of course not. But there is a reason why I quit watching and reading the media and the news articles and stuff, because even though I had, even though I know my brother and I know that there was no reason for him to have done any of this, and knowing that it was virtually impossible given the state's theory, right? And what their timeline and their lack of evidence and everything, right? But I mean,
Yeah.
even me as his sister reading some of those articles, I was like, they found what? You know? Well, Jesus, you know, like how could he? And, you know, so I really had, so I guess
So it was making you question
mhm,
yourself.
it made me
Wow.
question my own truth, and knowing what had been going on those days and those weeks leading up to all of that, and even after with the investigation and everything, like to see um yeah, an article or a headline that says, you know, they found blood in the van, and I'm just like, they did what? They how? You know, like, and now you know it was never tested to be blood, and the news sucks, and they'll twist and spin everything um in any way to get the views, the clicks, the likes, the whatever. And in this case, it was definitely against my brother, and it really sucked. But no, I never really actually thought he could have done this or did this or had any reason to.
Well, I mean, that's interesting that you'd said that it was starting to make you question what you knew, just
Yeah.
because of what was there. And it's something that I said yesterday, and I've said it from the beginning. I don't know if he did it or not, because I wasn't there to see who did what. We don't even know if anything happened.
Technically, I wasn't either.
And this is what I tell people: it doesn't matter whether he did it or not. What matters is what they can prove. And I have the people, people send make comments on the videos, send me DMs, on all the social media things saying, well, he did it. He did it because, as you said, they found blood in the van and it was his DNA. And I say, look, go back and please, in the nicest possible way, show me where they said that was blood.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
can't.
You can't.
And show me where they said it was his DNA. No, they just said he couldn't be excluded.
Mm-hmm.
So what you understand is wrong.
Yeah.
And it's not whether he did it or not. It's what can they prove? What can the prosecution prove? And is it beyond a reasonable doubt? And as I've said a million times, I mean, I forget the entire trial. Go to the closing statements, go to the closing arguments by the prosecutor.
Maybe.
The very first time he said the word maybe, the trial should have been over at that instant, and the jury should have shut out everything else. Because maybe means maybe not, and that shows doubt. That shows a reasonable doubt.
Absolutely.
And so it's not it's the saying that we go over and over all over again is better that 100 guilty people go free than one innocent person be convicted, because as Steve was talking, as we've talked about, the government has the power to literally kill you or figuratively kill you by putting you in jail for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's scary.
And you can't just go, oh, well, I saw on Law and Crime, or I saw on 48 Hours or something where they did this and this. No, if it's not proven in court, it didn't happen.
Well, if I may, just comment on that. Like, I started watching trials last year with like the Depp trial. I've watched, the Murdoch trial. And so going through those trials, and like with Rittenhouse, people will take these little bullet points. They'll completely misunderstand the evidence and the characteristic of it. They'll misrepresent it, and it'll get blown out of proportion in the media. And all of these, armchair detectives will think that they know for sure that that person is guilty based on a misrepresentation of a fact. They didn't even watch the testimony in the trial where the experts discuss whether that was blood or not blood. It's very easy to go and just watch the stream, but people really like to be right. People really like to convict. People really like to be angry and have this sort of justice boner, and it's really messed up because obviously we're sitting here with you. You are a real person affected by this experience, and those people do not really think about that. And I think that people need to be more sensitive and aware that this is somebody's real life, like the Murdoch family. They're real people, even if they're not likable. Your family is going through a very complex, emotional, traumatic, and tragic situation, and you're coping with it the best that you can, but people just don't see the human side of it. And I think that that needs to change.
Yeah, I would agree. A lot of the comments that we've seen, as far as like the family, taking hits at us saying like we weren't there enough at trial, or then we were there at the wrong times when we were there for the wrong reasons. And it's like no one knows how bad I wanted so badly to be able to fly up for just a day or two to be able to sit in trial and support my brother. But I couldn't make that work I've got a baby that's still nursing,
I know you're a
and
new mother. Being
yeah,
pregnant through that experience, I can't imagine as a woman how challenging and, and difficult that must have been.
I mean,
Maybe not. I don't know. I've never
I
been
mean,
pregnant. I'm not sure, but
the pregnancy itself, that's its own stress. My brother, so understand, my brother got arrested for stalking, and it was just like, all right, like let's go through the motions, right? And it took I thought it took closer to a year, but everybody's been saying 7 months, which might as well be a year, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure it felt like forever. Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like forever,
Yeah.
7 months to even tack on the homicide charge and the hiding a corpse charge. So, it's just been this really slow, drawn out. Like I remember I kept saying, like, how long can they hold him on stalking? How long can they hold him on stalking? Like it's not like he's some repeat offender. Like this was the first, he has no history of any of this stuff. Like, what is going on? And they've got nothing. They've got nothing. I was out at the tree farm day in and day out. There was my alibi. Me and Josh were together out on the tree farm. And, when we were planting 5,000 trees, we plant 5,000 trees a year. They completely stopped that process. We lost a lot of trees. They were not nice to, I don't know if I can say all these things. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
yeah. So
The impact that it has on your family, it's, it
yeah,
changes everything for you. It affects your business. It affects the way you live your everyday life because
right,
because it takes up your whole world like this, wanting to get justice for your brother, wanting him to be
right.
released and
But
not seeing that. It's a huge stressor. Lawsuits
yeah.
are incredibly stressful for people.
But by the time I was pregnant and having a baby, it was really just a waiting game at that point. There was nothing we could do, besides wait and hope that he would finally get the trial that he deserved, which he did not. It was everything but a fair trial. Um, I'm still not understanding the whole idea of why Schrader was
Yeah.
even the judge. I think he said multiple times, like, I don't typically do criminal cases. And it's like, well, then what are you fucking doing here, bro?
Yeah,
And
he used to, then he kind of retired to civil things and partially retired. Then they sort of brought him back out to do this, I guess, was kind
I
of the
was
thing.
super offended every time they cracked jokes in the courtroom. I thought that was very distasteful. Here I'm looking at my brother, from 1,200 miles away through a computer screen, and his life is on the line, and they're
Yeah.
just cracking jokes.
Yeah. And that was one thing that we were critical of Judge Schrader back during the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, was during the breaks and lunch, he would be playing like Trivial Pursuit with the jurors and things.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's weird. Yeah. And as you say, it was disrespectful to you.
Yeah, 100%. It it a lot of the things throughout, the trial, pissed me off, but it was when it was in the moments of the downtime, just like for how just like nonchalant and like not a big deal it was for them, like, I mean, I can't imagine how my brother felt sitting there while they were cracking dad jokes. Like, what the fuck,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I don't know. It- the as much as I wanted to be there, Saul and Jen both said I wouldn't have made it through a day in the courtroom. I, I would
You would
not
have been one of the ones that are tossed out on your ear, huh?
Oh, 100%. I wouldn't have kept I certainly can't keep my face to myself. Um, and I'm sure I would have had words at some point, just an outburst because of how frustrating the entire
Yeah.
trial was. So,
Well, there's a couple of comments here, and then I kind of want to put you on the spot with a question,
okay.
if I can.
You're ready.
Let's see. Well, first, let's get Xcomer Triple Z's comment out of the way here. Serious question. That's debatable, Axcomer. How will courts deal with DNA when it comes to trans people? It was male DNA. I'm not a male, damn it. Well, I'm not quite sure that's as serious a question as you made it out to be. But yeah, well, we might talk about that on a Friday stream or something. And John Gordon said, bet it's more like 15 to 25%. I'm not sure which statistic that was talking about. I probably should have read that instantly. I apologize, John, but I'm not quite sure which statistic that was talking about, but I do appreciate the super chat. Unhung Hero says, yeah, butt munch was not credible at all. And here's the few questions, the few comments, and then the questions for you I have for you. Donna says, Wisconsin will always be here for you. Wonderful part of a small town like Random Lake.
Yeah, Random Lake is nice.
And KKB says, working today, listening but can't chat. Just wanted to say thank you to Zenith for coming on. You and your family have my prayers and support.
Well, thank you.
And let's see, Amy, we'll get you in just a second here, Amy. All right, now the question I have for you that might put you somewhat on the spot, because clearly some of the people that think he is absolutely guilty and probably have said some of the stuff over on Law and Crime and spurging out on the internet and whatnot. What would you like to say to them if they happen to get to this part of the trial, as someone who is involved in this on a very, very personal level, about their comments and the way their behavior and their statements they were making during the trial and that they're making to you probably now? What would you say to them?
That, or that, one or the other. No, there was, I don't know what to say to them. I mean, I'm sorry that, yeah, I don't know. It's so hard because of course I'm biased because he's my brother, but, I did go into the trial with an open mind. I knew that previously just the media coverage alone had started to make me wonder certain things or question certain things. So I really did go into this just thinking like, well, if they can prove it, then they can prove it. And screw what I think is right or truth or whatever, if they've got evidence, but they laid it out and I didn't see anything anything that was proof or whatever that my brother had anything to do with this. The only thing they had was an accusation from someone who, I mean, that I also don't want to, like, I can't even talk or speak ill of her because I can't,
Well, and then what about? And what about how the comments? I mean, that were directed personally at your family. Yeah, just the trollish comments and things. You could sit down with one of them and say, "Look, this is how those comments made me feel.
Ooh.
This is things you need to think of." What would you say to them?
All right, Zach's calling me right now.
But don't take the call. I mean, I don't want to ruin that time with him.
We'll be here if you want to come back.
No, he can always call me back. It's fine. I mean, I'd take it on live if y'all would say he could say hi.
Yeah, don't want to do that.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to take this, we can chat here without you.
He's gone now. No.
Tell him sorry.
No, he can call me back. It's fine. He calls me 10 times a day sometimes. It's okay. He probably thinks we're done talking and he'll call me back. Don't worry.
So he knew you were going to be here. But please tell him hello, and I will personally. Because mail takes a long time to get from here to there. It takes like 10 days plus, and then to get something back. Tell him once 16th happens and we figure out where he's at next, I will send him a personal note.
Absolutely. And he is always telling me to tell everyone, thank you for the support and the fight. And I keep telling everyone it's going to take an army. So, but as far as the people go that were trolling, I guess the one thing I'd say is I told you I was a sister because half the people didn't believe I was who I said I was. So I told you so. Then I think I kind of already touched a little bit on the comment about us not being there enough or too much or for the wrong reasons. You know, I would have done anything to been able to make that work financially and physically and with a baby, but it just wasn't. I couldn't, but I was there every day, as you know, through your stream. And then there was one comment that's actually kind of stuck with me.
What's that?
Because it was so messed up. And I don't even know what I could say to this person. But it was when Zach had talked and everyone was going gaga over his voice.
Yeah.
And this person said, yeah, I can't wait to hear Zach's voice too, as he's screaming after he drops the soap in prison.
Ugh.
Like,
No.
first of all, like, what is wrong with you? You know, I don't know why. Like you said, they're behind a screen, and you know that's probably something that they would never say to my face. But it's like I don't understand how people who literally have zero ties to it on an emotional level could just wish something or say something just so awful. You know, it's fun. It's one thing to joke about the man bun and ha ha ha, like that's you know, that's funny enough, but like that kind of stuff was just, I mean, like I'm shaking thinking about what and like I said, what do you say to that? What do you say to that besides, you know, fuck you? Like,
Yeah, see, I'm just not wired that way either.
Yeah.
And I've talked about it out of the context of this trial and things several times. I just don't get people that say things just to make other people hate them.
Yeah. Yeah, someone also said that like everybody with the name that starts with the letter Z is a demon and deserves to die or something. And I was just like, okay, that makes sense. Like, okay. Like
That sounds like a you problem.
Yeah.
That sounds like your delusions.
Yeah.
And I do not receive that. I will not cater to that. That is not in my, I'm not allowing that in my space, in my orbit.
Yeah, but I think,
Well, speaking of the man bun, go over that story again. Why he grew his hair out in the first place?
wait, I think you're talking about the very first time he grew his man bun.
Yeah.
So he grew his hair out with his.
For those that weren't here yesterday, this is the story.
Yeah, so he grew his hair out long time ago to help ease Olivia. Sorry, OA.
Yeah,
I did it. I tried so hard to help. Yeah, I know. To help ease OA into her very first haircut, so that she wouldn't be so scared when she had to sit down and, you know, cut her hair. So he grew his hair out real nice and long, had a man bun, so he could, you know, help her get over that fear. Because I guess your very first haircuts can be a thing. I don't remember mine.
Yeah, I don't remember mine. I actually do remember my first haircut. It's weird.
Really?
That's one of my earliest memories.
Maybe it is a thing, and I don't know.
I literally remember my first haircut, and it's weird because when I went back to never mind. I was getting off on a sidetrack. I say when I got back on vacation, I actually got my haircut by the same guy that gave me my first haircut ever. So this guy's been doing it a long ass time, but I mean that is a thing. We had some other things here to comment on. Kiranoth said, "This. Thank you so much, by the way, for the super chat here. This is the same court system that correctly exonerated Rittenhouse. I was expecting better, considering how badly the media was against him. Rittenhouse was one of the luckiest people on planet Earth. I mean, that's just a thing, and I think we're seeing that more and more as we look at the different trials." And Danny Conley says, "Come on, Jeff, didn't you hear Nancy Pelosi say the justice system is to prove yourself innocent? The sad thing is, because the media is coming close to a true statement, is getting ridiculous." Yeah, I mean, that was the thing. I didn't want to talk about the Nancy Pelosi statement, but that's what she said about the Donald Trump things. Well, now he has the chance to prove himself innocent.
I saw
That's
that.
not how this fucking works.
I saw that.
That's
Yeah.
not
Speaker
how
of the
this
House.
works.
How long has she been an attorney? How long was she the Speaker of the House? I mean, that is disgusting. It's like, that's not what America stands for. Not my America. Sorry.
Yeah.
Due process. You don't know what due process is, Nancy? Seriously?
Amy's clarified here. She said, I meant after they left trial and saw what we saw, and yes, Dickory, YouTube won't let me send the full word, I would feel bamboozled. Yeah, I mean, what do you think? What do you?
I don't know, because the jury, from what I understand, they're from Kenosha, right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, or that area at least.
Or that area. So I mean, they were hit hard with all of the media. You know what I mean? It doesn't. They went. I wholeheartedly believe. I just don't. I mean, if I was living over an hour away and was seeing the news of it, I mean, it was real there, and the family, of course, doing what they were doing to, search for him, which is, there's just no way that jury went into it just like as a blank slate, like not having any sort of idea of what they felt before the trial started. In my opinion, I just don't know how they could have.
Yeah. And I mean, that's one of the things that they're always asked when you're seating the jury is, do you know anything about this? Have you heard anything about this? And if they answer yes, then it'll be like, where did you hear about it? And do you think this would impact your ability to be a fair and impartial juror? And whether you say, yeah, I think, I think it would, and then they're gone, or they say, oh, no, I saw it, but I don't think it's going to affect me. And then they're still in the jury pool, What are you going to do? Say, yeah, I think it would. You can really just take them at their face value. So either people that want to get out of jury or want to be on the jury. And both of those are scary.
Yeah.
And Flux has asked the question here a while ago. This is a delicate issue. I mean, you can avoid it, or you can answer it how you see fit. Said Zenith, what were your thoughts about baby girl on the stand? If it's something you don't want to answer, you don't need to.
I mean,
but if it's something you want to touch on,
it was disappointing. It hurt to hear her just say things, like I said, like that weren't. I don't know what I can say about all, like, specifically. I can't go into details, I guess. It hurt. It hurt to hear her call her dad the defendant. It hurt yeah. The sassiness didn't really surprise me, I guess. She's always been quite sassy, spicy. That's what I love about her. But yeah, I think it sucked. I don't think she should have gone up there. Not for any other reason other than she was 12 at the time that they took a statement. I don't think that they should have ever gone as far as they did just with her as a whole throughout this entire process,
I think the prosecutors are just completely evil for putting her on the stand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ask a girl who was 12 years old and is now 14 or 15 to testify against her father. And it's at some point, I know I mentioned this yesterday and I've mentioned it before. At some point, she's gonna realize that her testimony may have put her father in jail for the rest of his life, and she may never be able to see him ever again. And at some point, for better or worse, she's gonna need some help to deal with some issues, I think. And I really do hope she gets it. That's a rough thing to come to terms with.
Yeah, and I just hope she understands, because I don't know that she understands that we weren't allowed to talk to her. That it was never, me, and that I love her very much.
It's really hard to see how this has affected your family.
And Just Jurors here has an interesting question that kind of follows on that. What was it like for you? What was it like for you for the case to go national? I mean, this is your family. This is just you're this little family that's in Texas and Wisconsin, and it's not even going national. I'm sitting here in South Korea talking about it.
Yeah,
it's a worldwide case.
It's worldwide.
What is that like?
In Australia.
Switzerland, people are coming out from all over the place. I mean, I guess it's kind of cool. Cool's not the right word. It's interesting. It's very interesting to see that even globally, no matter where you're from, you can look at this case and just go, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
what happened? How did this happen? Um, and hopefully that in some way will turn into something that can help us, with helping Zach in the next step of whatever comes after this. Because maybe if it can be a big enough deal everywhere, they can't ignore it as this. Because I mean, I don't know. I've never experienced something like this before, and like I said, I didn't follow trials and law and crime and everything, and so I didn't have anything to compare this to. Um, I felt that it was really weird going through this trial and just seeing that, you've got a defense and they're just not allowed to say anything. Everything that they tried to bring up, it was objection, judge sustains it, meaning there's no more going after it. And then you're just like, well, how, like in the openings when they were like, the police did a shitty job and here's A, B, and C, why. But you didn't even get that far before Gravely was like,
Yeah.
and
Shutting it down.
and then and it's just like, I remember thinking, like, how is the defense supposed, like, what is the defense supposed to say? He did it? I mean, their job is to say, my client didn't do this. Here's a reason, like, here's a more reasonable explanation, what, right? Like, or here's why he couldn't, but like, they couldn't say any of that. How are you, like, if you're saying my client didn't do it, well, then obviously someone else did, right? But apparently you can't say that. So I just did not understand this trial at all. I don't think it made any sense. I eh, Nothing added up to me. The evidence was nothing, like no evidence. It was all hearsay. And I mean, you heard that 100 times. That's hearsay.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's got to be really surreal. I mean, knowing that, and then seeing someone from America, someone from Korea, someone from
Mhm.
Sweden, someone from
Mhm.
Australia
Mhm.
talking
Covering it.
about your family situation and covering this trial.
Yeah,
That's got to be just totally surreal.
it was. Mhm. Yeah. Uh, yeah.
And I mean, little old you is on a world stage. Your family is there. That would just be really, really just incomprehensible to me.
Yeah. I Yeah, but it's just my life, you
Yeah.
know? I didn't uh, I mean, I definitely didn't know so many people were going to be watching it, and to find out so many people all over the world did. I mean, yeah, it's pretty surreal, but at the end of the day, it's just my life, or our life, Zach's life, our family's life. It's not, I don't know. Um, at
Well, we
least
have. Go ahead. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you
no,
off.
no, I don't really even know where to go with that except for, yeah, it's pretty surreal, but also it's just another day for me, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, yeah. Life goes on,
Yeah,
and that's unfortunately under these circumstances
but it's
that can
been
be tricky at times.
but it's been fun to talk to everyone from all over the place and just see that, like, no matter where you're at in the world, like, this is not okay. Like, justice was not served, not for my family, not for Rosalio's family.
Mhm.
Um, and that was, another thing my family is super big on is, um, this isn't just about us, it's about uh, the other victim or the victim too. And um, we want answers just as much as they do.
And Shannon 7, who's been a member for 6 months of my clean and sober crew, says, just wanted to send my love and prayers for Zenith, Zach, and the whole family. As you can see, you're not alone. Jeff, thank you for bringing attention to this. I'm just doing this because I've never really been this affected by a trial that I've watched or covered before, because it was such an insane miscarriage of justice. And again, having you in chat, having Solomon in chat, and having Jen in chat, and then talking with you directly behind the scenes and things is really put a personal twist on this. And it's kind of a responsibility, I feel, to show people and demonstrate how poor of a job the prosecution did, and how slimy of a job they did, and how they utterly failed to prove anything even close to beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
And it needs to have attention brought to it. And again, in the chat, the mods are posting the Give Send Go campaign. Go there if you want to help contribute to these immense funds. I mean, appeals are not cheap. They're only asking for $54,000, and I'll tell you that is not even going to come close to covering the costs of an appeal.
Also, if y'all or if anyone out there watching is someone who's on the fence as far as what they feel about my brother, I ask you join our Facebook group, because there is a lot of discussion about the facts. There's a lot of discussion of the timelines, the different testimonies. We break things down, and I ask that you just come talk to us and get another side of the story and talk about our theories of what could or maybe did or didn't happen, based on nothing, and we don't know, but we just know whatever they said isn't what happened.
It's a complex case.
Yeah.
It's very confusing. It's hard to put together a theory of what really occurred. All I know is that the DA's version is the least likely explanation for events.
Yeah.
Which is very frustrating. We all wanted a different outcome for this trial, Zenith. We all were hoping for something much different and much better. And I really wish that you were with us under better circumstances. But I really admire you for coming here, because I think that you give people an opportunity to see the human side of trials, and you advocating for your brother is admirable.
Yeah, I love my brother.
And as you're saying, it's entertainment for most people that watch the trials. This is not entertainment for you.
No. Mm-mm.
This is your life.
Yeah, it was. Again, Saul said it yesterday. One of the ways he remembers or will always remember Zach is that time that they were sitting around the fire and just laughing. And I can't, if you were to ask me, what I miss most about my brother, it's, I mean, when the three brothers or just when the siblings or even just the family in general, but specifically the brothers, when they're sitting around together, the witty, actual banter, like true banter, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
What real banter is. When they're just going back and forth with each other. I mean, it'll start off like real small, right? Like someone will say something kind of funny, and then someone's like, hey, and then they quit, like whip back with something real funny. And the next thing you know, we're all just like crying, laughing, can't breathe. I'm usually about to piss myself. Like those are the memories, and how when I think of my brother, that's what I think of, is just the laughter and just how funny he is and how loving and caring. And I just can't imagine him having to not be a part of that ever again.
I can only imagine. It must feel like there's a missing space.
Absolutely.
And Solomon says, thanks for being here, everybody. Thank you for being here, Solomon, too. As I said, this isn't your entertainment.
No.
And I think and there's no way to instill that in the minds of trolls and whatnot, and just the box wine folks.
Let them troll away. They have no idea. They have no idea. The only thing they got to see was a complete fabricated bullshit lie. And if that's what they take it as, then you're never going to change their minds. But I know that there are so many people out there that saw this trial for what it was, and it was a complete shit show and not even close to a fair trial. I don't know. I don't
If
know.
I
Well, Tasha said, I cried for your brother and family when they read the verdict. Chandler got emotional.
I did. I
When
cried.
you I'm sure you've seen our reactions. We usually have some reaction to verdicts, whether it goes one way or the other. But all of us that were on the stream, on Hayden stream, we were just stunned into silence for a moment.
I was
mean,
there. I was there.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, we just sat there stunned. It's the first time I've ever seen us not react to a verdict.
I was devastated. I was gutted, and I can't even imagine what it must feel like for your whole family. It's like how I felt didn't even come close to what I'm sure you guys experienced.
And when the verdict came back after 10 hours, I was already in hysterics. I was in my office just hysterically crying, because I was just like, it's not long enough. It wasn't long enough. It wasn't long enough. So that 20 minutes of waiting to even hear them say what I knew what they were going to say, it was absolutely terrible.
I really wish it could have been different.
Me too. But this is where we're at now. And all we can do now is take the next steps. Again, this is the first time I've ever been in this position, so I'm here trying to be
hopefully it'll be the last.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, pray that. Pray that. But I don't know. We've got the Facebook group, we've got our Instagram, we've got the Give Send Go. And all we can do at this point is ask for help, because we are going to need it, and Zach needs it.
I think it's really important to have a network.
Yeah.
Of people who you can trust and rely on, and people who just are as outraged as you are, so that you know that your feelings are because what happened was a miscarriage of justice and a betrayal, but you need validation in the truth, because what happened was just completely wrong.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to point out that on the Facebook group, again, there's the address on how to send him your mail. And there's also a guide for what you can and cannot send, what you can and cannot say in the letters, there is a very, very strict guideline, and every piece of mail you send is going to get screened by someone in the prison. And if it violates any one of those rules, they're going to shred it and he will never see it. So please read those guidelines extremely carefully.
Be conscientious.
We also have t-shirts as a fundraiser. And if you can make it to sentencing, or you want to be at sentencing, we ask that you get one of these shirts, because we are all going to wear them in support. But also with a jacket or some kind of cardigan, maybe to cover it up just in case, because we don't know. And then if you can't make it to sentencing but still want to show your support, you can buy one of these shirts. And on sentencing day, May 16th, at 1 p.m., if you could take a picture of you in your shirt and post it to all of your social media accounts with the hashtag Free Zachariah Anderson. We're trying to start a movement and trend and getting more awareness for not just Zach, definitely Zach right now, but not just Zach, and how just the whole wrongfully convicted in general, just to bring awareness to what a problem it is, because it's a huge problem that I didn't even know was a problem until 2 weeks ago.
I will be getting a t-shirt.
Yeah, me too. Says I couldn't find the guidelines in the Facebook group where to look. I can't remember where they were. That was the first thing that I noticed when I got there. I'm not sure. I can't remember where it is or how to get there. I mean, do you know exactly where it is?
If we don't have it pinned on like the very top of all of where it pins it to the top of the wall, you're gonna have to do some scrolling where someone was probably talking about it. But hopefully someone's watching right now that's in the group, and maybe they can find that and pin it, or
Yeah, that would be a good thing to have it pinned right up at the top.
mhm,
I think.
yeah.
Well, there's a couple. Maybe you want to comment on this. Maybe you. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just saw a comment that said the guidelines are pinned at the top. So
Okay. There's two comments on the evidence here. One is from Easy007. Watching the trial from UK, and I didn't see anything to lead to guilt. Construction workers use trackers and things because of thieves, etc. Logical explanations. Exactly. And if they searched everything, why didn't they find the one that was missing? The one was on the table in his box. And if they searched all the vehicles and everything, why didn't they find the one that's missing? There's a question for you.
yeah.
And someone else said that where'd this go? The cutting out of the carpet was the only thing I didn't understand. For me, I have lots of friends in construction back home in Utah. Anybody with a carpeted van, the first thing they will do is chop out that carpet because it's going to get chemicals on it. It's going to get paint on it. It's going to get dirty and grimy and grubby. And you just cut it out because you want to get rid of that piece of carpet. That's something that literally everyone that I know that uses a personal van for construction does.
Because you're transporting materials that are, liquid or, caustic or whatever that, have to do with the work that you're doing. My uncle worked in construction, so I'm familiar. But, you just do that. You cut out that part. And there was that witness who had seen that the carpet had been cut out
Before,
which did not jive with Gravely's representation of events.
Nope.
Yeah, which they had two witnesses say that was that carpet had been cut out a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Jiminy the Witch says, would you go after the DA and judge for misconduct?
Would I? Damn right. I mean, I don't know how that works. I don't know.
Well, I mean, this is just my personal that I don't think that anything that Judge Schrader did amounted to misconduct. There's some perhaps things that would give grounds for appeal. Maybe, I don't know, because I'm not a lawyer in Wisconsin, but Gravely did some pretty shady shit.
Right. And as Gosney was saying, unfortunately, there were not a lot of objections to things that, like, when Joe was on, Joe was saying, why didn't they object here? Why didn't they object there to preserve it for the record? Objections, are important for appeals. So it might not be an easy thing to pursue, even though we would want to.
And Wolfram says televised court trials are educational for the most part, but it is also a watchdog. All trials should be televised and transparent, no option. What do you think about the televised trials? Do you think it's good that we do these things, or this is just something we just shouldn't be watching?
I'm very thankful for the televised trial, because had it not been televised, I wouldn't have been able to watch it or see it. If it wasn't for the televised trial, we would not have seen Gravely going die, die, die along with Munch.
Yeah.
I think that they're great, honestly, because I think not only does it show like I think he said it was like educational, right? Shit can't go down that's not caught on camera. And I think that that's important. It kind of preserves what actually happened, and it's not hearsay, because you seen it, like it's there for everyone to see. And I think in Zach's case, it being televised was actually pretty beneficial for him in more ways than one. So.
And that's what I say, and I don't know. Be interested to hear Chandler's views as well. I think every single court proceeding, from the smallest traffic ticket to the largest mass murder, should be fully televised and streamed. I mean, not necessarily on broadcast television, but at least streamed on YouTube or someplace like that, where we have rights. We have a right to go and witness trials. The only thing that stops us is the logistics. And I think if we can get all of these trials and things broadcast, if we can get them streamed, then we don't have to rely so much on the law and crimes, the court TVs that have to make them sensational.
Yeah, I think Chandler was
Very,
awesome.
very well said. My take?
Yeah.
So when I was in my paralegal program, we did a module on technology. And there was somebody who did a presentation about Axon body cams that police use. And he presented this evidence that when police use body cams, everything that is recorded, the way that it affects the officer, it kind of forces them to behave in such a way where he knows that he's being watched. So there's this surveillance effect. And I feel like televised trials have that effect because not only do you preserve everything and you can see everything, but I think that it might possibly have the effect of forcing prosecutors, and everybody involved to be on their best behavior, to not do things that are shady, because that's going to be on the internet forever. We're going to be able to see that video of that trial. I think that it's possible that it might have that effect. And if it does not, then we are able to see all of the missteps, all of the shady stuff, all the slimy things. And we can just see, even if it doesn't affect a legal outcome, it can have an impact on the way that people understand the court system and see how things go wrong. Because like Gosney was saying, he doesn't have a lot of faith in the system and in justice. And we're starting to see why. And I think that televised trials are good for the public to be aware of how innocent people, regular, ordinary, everyday people, can get railroaded. This could happen to you. And this should make us all want a better justice system. I don't know how we're going to change it, but I think it's important to be aware of it.
Yeah.
And we've got to kind of start to wind this down here. We've been going like 2.5 hours now. And again, I was expecting to be 90 minutes to 2 hours, but I have problems not talking. Because I could just have these conversations forever.
I'd stay all day if my producer didn't need a studio back. So
just to clear out what the chats that we've got so far here, we've only got a few left here, and then we can kind of start to wrap things up. Where do we got here? Donna says OA should have had a guardian ad litem. Well, that's kind of it. Guardian ad litems are usually appointed for minors or people that have been declared incompetent in proceedings that deal with them or can affect them, like child custody, child support, adoptions, emancipations, guardianships, things like that. So it wouldn't really be in this case. But the one thing we did see, which was something that I thought that Judge Schrader was very, very, very smart for doing, was when she was put on the stand, he found she did not have a lawyer, and he just said, is there a lawyer out there in the hall that can come in and step up and act as her lawyer and as someone to protect her interests while she's on the stand? I thought that was a good thing to do, to take care of and protect her while she was on the stand and to answer any questions she might have. So it was, she essentially had a lawyer while she was on the stand. Let's see. Are they using the same attorneys? That's one thing we can't discuss. Our prayers and love sent your way. I still think if they go on Nick's channel, Nick Ricada, talking about the money could be raised. This is the beginning. This is the beginning of the appearances on things. Like Solomon said there that he's going to be on Megan Fox's channel, and I'm sure there's going to be more. And I said, Joe Neerman, I'm sure that he could work something out. This is the beginning of the process. It's going to be nonstop, I guess. You've got to do what you can, and you've got to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of the stickers that came in. Corn Pop had 1, 2, 3, 4, and Big Bird also had 2 super stickers, which deeply, deeply thank you for all of those, and thank you for all the super chats that have come in. And there's been a lot of comments about reaching out to, has there been to the Innocence Project, things like that. That, as we talked about yesterday, the Innocence Project is a last resort. Mm-hmm. It's there as an option, but ordinarily that's okay. Solomon says he's going to be on Megan Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central Time. It'll be 11 Eastern on Tuesday. Check that out again. Megan is she's good people. And she's in the media world as well. So that's going to be a big opening door. And we'll see what we can do about getting on even larger platforms with more people. Because we want to do what we can to help. And again, I mean, whether you are convinced that he didn't do it, or even if you don't know whether he did it, but you know that the prosecution didn't do their job, or even if you're one of an extreme outliers that are pretty convinced that even if he did it, the prosecution still did not prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Remember, this could be you. This could be you. This could be any other innocent person out there. Any one of us could just be going anywhere and be in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people and be accused of something like this. So keep that in mind, I think.
It could be your brother.
I mean, it could be you, it could be a family member, and you would want the state to be held to the highest standard. Go back and watch this. If you're one of these replay people, go back and watch the trial and think, if that was my brother or my sister or my loved one, do I think that they did their job to the point where I could say, yeah, my brother, my loved one is guilty? I can't imagine that anybody could objectively consider that question and think they did. Max Schmidt said Jeff's paper house is breaking down. No, that was Chandler.
I dropped my phone. It's kind of
I mean, Zenith, we're here to talk about you, to get to know you, to get to know how this affected your family. Nicholas here coming in, was not until the gun comment. She's got the lawyer. I thought right from the time she took the stand.
No,
that they did. Okay.
he's right.
Nicholas is correct.
All right.
Yeah.
Huh, okay. I stand corrected. See, that's why I like when people correct me. We're here to talk to you, to get to know you, to get how this has affected you and your family going forward. I mean, what do you want people to take away from all of this? Specifically dealing with Zach's situation rather than the whole grand scheme of the legal system.
Right. I hope.
I guess what we're saying is now's the time to get personal.
I hope that, I mean, obviously I know it's not, okay, let's see. How do I answer this?
Take your time.
I hope that people can see through, the prosecution and what he was accused of, and see the trial. Like you said, whether you believe he's guilty or not guilty, did they prove that beyond a reasonable doubt? Because obviously I don't think they did. Not even close. I just have to push our Facebook group, our Instagram, our Give, Send, Go. But also, Zach is facing life for something that I think he clearly did not do. And that's wrong. And it's wrong on so many levels that I just don't even know how or where to begin. So, if you feel so inclined to help, our family cannot thank you enough. Yeah.
Chandler, anything you want to say before we wrap up here directly?
I've probably expressed this already, but I think that it's remarkable to have the opportunity to engage with you, and I'm so glad that you're here. It takes a lot to come on here and be as vulnerable, considering the gravity of your situation. It's not easy. And I'm glad that you've shared your experience with us, because I think that it will have an impact on a lot of people. And I hope a lot of people hear your message clearly and think about the impact of what you're saying, think about what you really mean, because it's a miscarriage of justice, and I want everybody to see that clearly. So thank you and Solomon both for being here and helping us to see that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having us, because you are the start in helping us make a voice for Zach. And we thank you very much for having us, and hope, if things start to get somewhere, maybe we can come and talk to you guys again.
We all want the best outcome possible at this point, and I don't know what that's going to be.
Yeah.
You're going to have to, figure that out as you go along, but I know we all want the best.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to thank both you and Solomon and Jen as well for trusting me enough to tell your story, to share your story, and I appreciate the I don't know if risk is the right word, or the trust it takes to trust me to tell to be objective and to be. I mean, that means a lot to me.
Yeah.
That people who were strangers a month ago, you're now literally coming here and opening yourself up and trusting me to be respectful and to treat it with the gravity that it deserves. I that means a lot to me, and I appreciate you guys doing that.
Of course.
It's a big responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I told you before we came on, I was really scared I was going to say something stupid, that I'm not supposed to say. But, I think I felt confident enough that you weren't going to let me go off and talk about something that I shouldn't be talking about. So
I think you did great.
To wrap this, you guys are fantastic, and it takes a lot of courage for you guys to do what you're doing, and courage and bravery to really step up and take on an entire system.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
to
not easy.
wrap this up.
You think you're going to come into this interview and just be like, these were the facts, and this was this, and that was that. But
yeah,
honestly, I'm so emotionally exhausted from all of it that it's like, I don't even know what's happening anymore, honestly. So,
well, take care of yourself and make your well-being a priority, because that really, really matters.
Yeah. Got to for my baby.
Absolutely.
And thank you everyone who was here today. And if you've joined our Facebook, if you've donated, thank you.
And there's 3 last comments to get through here before we shut down. There's Corn Pop has 2 more super stickers, and let's see. Max Smith says, "Who is the attorney that will follow this on Tuesday?" It's not an attorney. It's Megan Fox, the reporter, not the one with the weird thumbs. This is the reporter, Megan Fox, and you can find her on here on YouTube. She also has a locals channel. You can follow her on Twitter as well to get the times, and I'll mention the times too, and put something up. So yeah, it'll be Megan Fox that'll be doing the interview with Solomon on Tuesday. And Jacob's Proud Madre, hey, thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for your super chat. Zenith, my heart and prayers are with you. I'm 100% dedicated to helping you free your wonderful brother. And finally, Xcomer Triple Z said, how about a fundraiser stream for Zach's defense? Funny you should mention that. I'm trying to think of when, where, and how something like that would work.
That's a wonderful idea.
So it's up in here. So don't stay tuned is what I'll say for that. We'll talk with people on how to get this thing off the ground, and when would be a good time to do it and whatnot. So it'll probably be after sentencing, so we know exactly what we're working with. But stay tuned.
I will continue to post the links on my Twitter and on YouTube, just so that everybody, if anybody hasn't seen it, that they can go and donate. They can go and follow the Facebook page.
Thank you.
And to wrap this up again, if it's something you're inclined to do and if something you want to do, go check out the Give, Send, Go. The links are down here in the in the description of the stream here. Go check out the Facebook group. There's some merch that you can go, the t-shirts and whatnot. Anything else that we need to mention before we wrap this up, Zenith?
No, I don't think so. Sorry that no, I'm not gonna sit there and do that. No, we're good. Just thank you, everyone. Zach thanks you. Our family thanks you. I thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And sentencing is May 16th.
Yes, sentencing May 16th.
What does
And we'll
this
give you the
mean? What is that symbol?
That's I love you in sign language.
Oh, I forgot. I knew that when I was a kid.
Yeah, it's kind of the it's like the logo of our campaign for Zach.
I noticed on the t-shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's got the I love you beyond a reasonable doubt.
Mhm.
And then hashtag free Zachariah Anderson. And I guess you should know, this is something that's very close to Zach. Where's my camera?
Yeah, there you go.
Right? This is something that's very close to Zach. He does this all the time when he's leaving somewhere, when he sees you. That's his sign, right? So it was supposed to be a surprise. His shirts at sentencing with everything, but he actually found out about the shirts and somehow even saw them. I guess someone sent a picture or something. And he called me just like very emotional over the design, because of course we knew as the family it was going to, right there. So yeah.
We'll give you the last word, Zenith.
What? Oh, okay.
This is your last words here. Anything you got to say on the way out?
I again just thank everyone. I just thank everyone so much. Watch the trial if you haven't, and share it. I mean, share it with the world. Go check out our Facebook. Go check out our Instagram. Talk about it. Raise awareness, because it's not right. It's not right. And to all of the people who are already supporting, thank you. I wish I had been able to kind of keep up with the comments and chat a little bit more like I did whenever I was actually part of the chat. It's not as easy to do when you're talking to the camera, but if you really want to have me answer some of those questions, just join the Facebook group and get on there, and I'll talk to you about my music and my horse too, like if that's what you really want to know. Right? But I'm here for Zach, and Zach thanks you. I thank you. And we got this. We're gonna figure it out one way or another.
When you talk to him in a little bit, just let him know that we're here, and that we're giving our support.
Absolutely.
We think this is a complete miscarriage and it needs to be rectified. Chat, thank you so much for being here. Mods, thank you so much for helping out. Thank you everybody that commented, and I'll be back tomorrow with some OJ Simpson stuff, as will Chandler, my co-host. In the meantime, again, the Give, Send, Go, the Facebook group, and thank you so much for being here, Zenith.
Thank you. It was nice
much
to meet you
appreciated.
guys. Yeah.
And on that note, we'll see you all tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Bye, everybody.